There's no time.
Lost. Ties. Darkness. Tears.
The time is
13
o'clock.
All right, it's Friday night, episode 192, UK Crimes. Johnny's got something good for us tonight.
That's right. We're covering 3 cases, all of which have been requested at various times. Some of them have been requested several times, going back like a year or two ago, and I'm just now getting around to them. I just decided to put them all on one show because, you know, it's like I have so many requested topics, and like I said, I've just gotten to the point where I'm just taking ones. It's like, did these all happen in the same country? Okay, I'm talking about them on one show so I can get them all covered.
Yeah, and we're probably gonna have to move kind of fast because I know how Jenny is. She'll pick like 2 or 3 subjects, and then she tries to cover them so meticulously. That's like a 6-hour show, 7-hour show.
I've been trying not to do that, but it's like I don't know. It's like I have this really paranoid thing where it's like I don't want the show to go on forever because then it's like a lot more work for me to edit. But then again, I don't want to like leave shit out.
And then have people in the comments
and then have
section,
people like complain about like, you dumbass, that's the wrong name, or you left this fact out, or you left that fact out. It's like, you know what I mean?
Leaving
it's like,
out people's favorite facts.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's really, it kind of stresses me out, you guys, because you know what I mean? As I do a lot of research for these shows, but you know, I can't devote like, you know, full time to it because I have like.
You gotta write books.
I got a couple other gigs going on.
Daily shows we gotta do.
Yeah,
which
so
people on Sidetracks, which is our daily show, they're becoming quite popular. We're getting regulars over there. You know, they're asking us to drink on the damn
during that.
And man,
I don't know if that's
fucking alky, man. I can't do that
because we just film those. We usually film those in the early afternoon.
I guess some of our old timers, you know, who've been with us from the very beginning because they saw the main shows and we were mostly doing them on the weekends. They just assumed that I'm a fucking lush and that you're a fucking lush and that we just drink 24/7 or drink every fucking day. Well, yeah, I love my shit, but we don't drink every day, you know. And
most days we do, but most evenings.
It's night before we go to bed. Might have a drink.
Sometimes have one or two.
That's normal.
Not every night.
We're watching movies, and I don't usually make them all that strong. Sometimes I will.
Yeah. Well, on a weekend night we do.
Yeah.
If we don't have to record anything and we don't have to get up early the next morning.
But shit, you know, in my family, that was just kind of normal to have a drink before you bedded down.
Yeah, see, I always thought that was kind of like, even though like no one really drank in my family, like my parents didn't drink or anything. They weren't like, you know, you can't drink or anything. They just, it wasn't a thing that they did. But it definitely does seem like not that weird. It just does seem like a lot of people come home from work and have just like some wine or
pour scotch,
a cocktail
and just
or
watch a movie, and then that's it.
Yeah, it's like we're not out running around rampaging or nothing.
Right.
It's like on a drunken rampage. But yeah, so talking about drinking, it might not seem very germane, but
I don't consider that drinking.
That's
for me. Drinking is like when I'm sitting there and I'm drinking one after the other. I'm at the club and fucking I come out hammered.
Yeah,
that's drinking.
That's different.
That's a lot different.
Yeah, we don't usually get.
We don't do that.
Just like not fucking
like we
blind
used to.
drunk at home.
Yeah, not at home. No.
Like I said, I usually just have one. Like while we're watching a movie. Sometimes I'll have a second one if it's like
I
Friday
say
night
it's
or
one,
Saturday
but I
night.
pour a fucking double.
Yeah, it's like this big.
Yeah,
it's not that big.
It's one. It's fucking one. It's a double or a triple. Okay.
That's just like people that are on a diet and they're just like, well, I'm just gonna have one cupcake and it's like,
it's like that. Yeah.
It's a cupcake.
I'll have one piece of that pizza. And fucking, I cut the pizza because I make my own pizza and it's like a quarter.
It's like a quarter.
It's a quarter of the pizza. It's one piece.
It's one piece.
Yeah.
It's probably like 4,000 calories. Mm-hmm. So good though. But yeah, so like I said, the talk of drinking might not seem like it's very apropos, but it actually is to the first case that we're going to talk about, which we'll get into in a bit. But before we do that, let's do a couple of shout-outs because we got several this week.
Crap channel's growing.
Yes, it is. Got 2 new patrons, Heather and Karen.
Welcome to the show, and thank you for becoming a patron.
Thank you very much.
And the more patrons we have, the fucking more show you have, and the more we will be here for you. And the longer we will be here for you. In fact, we're opening up a new payment plan on YouTube. Jenny's figuring that out now, but you can You can go through YouTube if you don't want to do a Patreon.
We're going to do it. We'll probably do the tiers similar to what we have going on Patreon. We'll probably either have 2 or 3 tiers.
I'm thinking a $2, a $3, and a $20.
Or a $2, a $5, and a $20, something like that.
$2 or $5. And
like
$20,
I said, it's similar to what we'll have on Patreon.
Yeah.
So
we get a lot of $20 patrons on.
We have several
on Patreon. So we got to have a $20 one.
Well, and I thought what I could do, if I do a YouTube membership, is I'll do the same thing that I do for Patreon people, where the lower tiers get, you get like early access to the shows and shit like that, and then 20 and up you get shirts.
Yeah, I'll send you some shirts. Which I'm behind on Rob's
Which
shirt.
and I want to say that too, because I just before we started recording this, I got a very large PayPal donation from Jason, who sent us some before. And
I'm gonna send him a shirt.
Yeah, and he was making a joke about how it's like, when do I get a shirt? When do I get a shirt? I'm like, we will. We're just like behind on making everybody's because we haven't been able to get out. Like all the fucking craft stores are closed.
We have to make a new shipment.
A lot of the places that like Jiffy shirts and stuff like that, they're operating at like severely like understaffed thing, and it's like they're really behind like on all their shit. So we don't even have a lot of stuff to print the shirts.
We need to come up with a couple of really badass designs too. I mean, our designs are getting better. I like all the designs that we have, but I know we can get better than that. I know you can come up with cool shit.
Yeah.
We just got to hit on the right thing. I want it to do 13 o'clock, but I also want it to be, what they call it, like a mishmash.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for a certain aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I think you know what I'm talking about. Something that we would wear to the club.
Yeah.
That's how I want it to look.
Yeah.
You can come up with something?
Yeah. Well,
right.
I always come up with something.
I know you always come up with something. I know it.
But yeah, so, and also somebody that we had that was already a very generous patron increased their support also a couple of days ago. That was Justin. So thank you very much, Justin. And again, thank you, Jason, for your very generous PayPal donation. And I swear to God, we're going to do the shirts.
We'll get to them.
We'll get to them. It's
As soon as the supply chain's open.
Yeah, it's like we've just had a lot of trouble like getting, because we still need to get like frames and ink and all that other kind of shit.
Couple stuff. Well,
and it's like hard to get.
Yeah, I need 2 frames would be good and 2 new things. But I have everything else. Cause
shit, man, even a lot of stuff it's really weird because I've ordered some stuff on Amazon that was not like essential. Like I ordered some new memory for my computer. I ordered like some makeup and hair dye and like just little like, beauty product type of stuff. Yeah. And that stuff's really behind. But then I got my shipment of shower gel. So maybe shower gel is essential and makeup isn't? I'm not really sure. But yeah, but then the weird thing was you ordered a lighting thing.
Yeah, DMX. We're gonna have a new show. I got a DMX and
it's a pretty colored
and
lights
4 RGB. I think they're called RGB lights. RGB lights.
Red, green, blue.
Yeah, so I'll be able to. We're gonna have some Giallo lighting back there at all times.
Hopefully it'll
upping our game. It's gonna look good. I'm gonna figure it out.
But yeah, but we got the cords for that today.
Yeah.
And you just ordered that a couple of days ago. So I was
got
surprised
the DMX
that showed up.
Yeah, I got the DMX cables, the DMX, and the lights will be here tomorrow.
Sweet.
Should be here tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll have
I'll
to
set it up.
We'll have to futz around with that this weekend and see how it comes out.
I want some cool colors, maybe like some fucking blue and some gold and with some red and
it's like
some
fucking
shit.
mood lighting up in this shit. That's right. All right, so I think that's probably all the shout-outs. I mentioned the YouTube membership thing. Like I said, I don't know how long it's going to take for that to go online because they're understaffed and everything. But
so it's finished? It's just got to go online?
No, we still have to do we have to record the video. We have to do like little bitty shit like that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I got most of the other shit sorted out. All right, so on this show, we are going to talk about 3 cases, UK crimes. They're all crimes that happened in England, Wales, or Scotland, although mostly England and Scotland. And these have all been requested by various people over the years, sometimes more than once. We're going to be covering the Pusher, the purported serial killer that's going around Manchester, pushing people into canals and killing them. We're also going to talk about the tragic murder of Sophie Lancaster, which is actually very well known in the kind of goth scene, because that's presumably why she was killed. And
I remember that case.
Yeah.
Those dudes needed to fucking ass stomping. Those dudes. So I'm like, where do you get to that?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when that shit went down.
It wasn't that long ago. It was like 2000.
Yeah, I was fucking mystified.
2000.
I was fucking mystified. I
was as well. I think a lot of people were. Well, a lot of people were over there too, because everybody had a fucking freak out about it. It's like it was a hugely famous case. And the third case we're going to talk about is the very famous World's End murder in Edinburgh, Scotland, which happened in 1977. But then it turned out that the guy that did it, who didn't get caught until much later on, actually turned out to be a serial rapist and serial killer named Angus Sinclair. And, after they found out that he was responsible for those two, but then they found out that he was responsible for a whole bunch of other shit, too. He's dead now. He died last year. But we're going to get into that as well. So let's start by talking about the Manchester Pusher case.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned on one of our sidetracks, probably Fridays, that I've been reading about, because remember we did the show about the smiley face theory.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that show, this is a similar kind of circumstance.
Yeah.
We think.
I think a similar type of thing is going on, but it's kind of it's kind of like an analogous situation in the sense that somebody somewhere has noticed that a whole shit ton of people, usually college-age males, are turning up dead in the canals of Manchester, England. Mm-hmm. And although many of these deaths are accidental or are ruled accidental, some people tend to think that a lot of them are murders and that there's either a serial killer or a gang of serial killers that is going around, and that's their modus operandi, is pushing people into the canal to kill them. Yeah. Much like in the Smiley Face murders case, which happened in the United States, which, to me is even less likely because it happened in like a whole bunch of different states, like usually in the Midwest, and there was some other ones in New England and shit too, I think.
Yeah, and each individual circumstance would have been kind of like a very petty murder with no motive behind it, with a big distance between them all, which would require a lot of organization and a lot of money. And
one of the speculation about this smiley face theory is that, and this is kind of ties in with the pusher thing too, is that some people think that on the fabled dark web, it's not fabled, it does actually exist, but on the dark web, that there's a loose group of fuck-ups and horrible people who that's kind of like their thing. And so they like are not organized really, but they're just like a dark web group, and it's like they just kind of go push people into canals for shits and giggles in whatever city that they're in.
And I'm highly skeptical.
Like, not impossible, obviously, but unlikely.
Very unlikely.
I'm saying that's unlikely.
And it's very unlikely for something like that to go undetected for this amount of time. Somebody would have said something by now. And
as I said, and I think I probably mentioned this on the Smiley Face Killer show, and this is kind of where I'm going with the Manchester Pusher case as well. I'm not saying that every single case of this is an accident. I'm not saying that. It's completely possible that one or several of them were murders or suicides or something like that. I'm just saying that, do I think that there is a person or persons who is going around and that's how they're killing people, pushing them into canals or pushing them into the water or something like that? I just don't think that's the case. It doesn't seem like a very effective way of killing someone.
No.
But I mean, there's a lot of evidence. I mean, there are a couple of cases, and a couple of them I'm going to talk about. I can't like talk about all of them because there were like a really lot. But some of the cases I want to talk about, there were some like weird circumstances surrounding it where maybe there was something else going on. But by and large, I think the vast majority of these are probably accidental deaths.
It's some kind of statistical phenomenon. That's what I believe.
Yeah, definitely.
Based on what you told me. We discussed this a little bit before the show earlier this morning when I got up. I was having coffee. I was sitting over there, and she was telling me about the case, and I was like, oh, yeah. And this is that it's easy for statistics to kind of play on your mind.
It is.
It's kind of like fuzzy math. You know what I mean? Like, you can connect dots that aren't there. Making connections between dots that aren't there. It's just mathematical probabilities.
Yeah. And
if you've got water, there's a mathematical probability that people are going to drown in it.
And
The more people that you have,
as you will see in the particular case of the Manchester pusher, not only does Manchester have about 10 miles of canals, but a lot of the canals are have stretches where they are unprotected, i.e. they do not have railings or anything on the side of them. Two are right next to like big city centers where there are, guess what, pubs.
Yeah.
So, and like where there's like a lot of people, particularly on weekend nights and stuff like that. So let's kind of get into this. Now, even though there were some cases beforehand, and even, before this happened, there were still like rumors going around Manchester that maybe there was somebody going around pushing people into canals for shits and giggles, like to kill people that way. But I think kind of it went global or viral or whatever you want to call it in early 2015. Now, this was when a newspaper, the Daily Star Sunday, they did a Freedom of Information Act thing because there had been all these rumors swirling about all these people dying in the Manchester canals. So they did a Freedom of Information request and found out that in 6 years, the prior 6 years to 2015, so presumably back to 2009, that 61 bodies had been pulled out of the Manchester waterways. Now, it should be noted that actually the body count was actually higher. It was actually, I believe, 85 bodies, although that included Greater Manchester, which also includes like all the suburbs and everything like that. The 61 figure was, the city center, Manchester proper, rather than like all like Rochdale and all the kind of outer lying boroughs or whatever. So the newspaper like goes to the Greater Manchester Police and is like, look, 61 bodies in 6 years. That seems like a lot. Have you guys like looked into this and everything? Now, the police are saying, look, there's no link there. These are generally seen as like accidental deaths or whatever. Now, along comes this guy who, he was a professor at Birmingham University. His name was Craig Jackson. Now, let me note right off the bat that as far as I am aware, Craig Jackson is not a statistician. I believe he is a psychologist or a psychiatrist. That's what his area of expertise. But he was kind of thinking, look, all these bodies, coming out of that's unusual. So he was the one that kind of kickstarted the whole idea that maybe this was a serial killer, or maybe kind of codified it, because it does seem like there were kind of rumors swirling before that.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Is there a clear date when this phenomenon began?
See, it's not really, because I do feel like, yes, the newspaper that came out in 2015, and they said, okay, since 2009, 61 bodies have been pulled out of the canal. But the thing about it is that if you look at other, like older newspapers and shit like that, there were bodies being pulled out of the canal prior to that also. But it doesn't really seem like anybody...
They're not asking
like they
questions.
weren't like paying a lot of attention to it until, and I don't know necessarily because it's kind of hard to get information about all this. It's very just scattershot. But it's kind of hard to tell whether there were more or less, or
probably
they just
less in the past, because how much you bet the population was smaller.
Maybe more people
like
have lived in that particular area.
I bet you if you had a clear a clear body of information on how many people fell in over the years, you'd find out there was no beginning point. They were always falling in and drowning. It was just fewer and fewer of them as you moved backwards in time.
Yeah.
As the population was smaller. It's probably population dependent, which means statistical.
I kind of feel like that's,
mostly statistical.
Spoiler alert, I think this is probably mostly a statistical.
Not to say that they were all by accident.
Yeah, I'm not saying that
There would have been a couple
either.
of them probably could have been murders.
Yeah, because there are, and I'll get into it, and there have been a couple of cases that they know were somebody that got pushed in and like they lived and got pushed in like they were getting mugged or whatever.
Yeah.
So it does happen.
Yeah.
But I just don't think all of them were that.
It's just we have a similar phenomenon here in Florida. Some of these neighborhoods have like these canals that run in between them down in the south. Mm-hmm. There's alligators in them.
Yeah.
And there's just a constant amount of dogs being eaten by the alligators. People aren't drowning in there because it's not deep enough.
Yeah.
But it's water, and there's alligators in it. This is a similar kind of situation. It's water, and it's deep, and drunks are falling in it.
Yeah.
A certain amount of them are going to fucking die.
Another thing about the canals in Manchester, too, is that for most of the year, they're really cold.
Yeah. Hypothermia kick in fucking crazy, especially if you're drunk.
Yep.
You can't get out in time.
And I'll go into that a little bit because
Yeah.
I'm just going to recommend this right here. I'll get into it a little bit later on.
And I bet you the data skews towards deaths in the winter.
It may. I'm not entirely sure.
I bet
but
you
they
it does.
but there's like a really good 2-part documentary. It's almost 2 hours long on this channel called Curiosity. And this guy, I think his name's Gary something, I can't remember, but he did like a really in-depth look at the Manchester pusher theory. And he did some crazy shit. Like it's a good documentary though. He really like went into it. I think that he kind of came down. He was actually very even-handed in it. He didn't come down on either side. He didn't say, yeah, I think it's a serial killer. Or, yeah, I think it's all accidents. But he just like presented all of the information, and he got like interviews with like a lot of like the victims' parents and stuff like that. So, like I said, so here's this guy, Professor Craig Jackson, and he kind of came out of like bolstering the serial killer theory because he's like, that many bodies, turning up in a body of water, that short amount of time is unusual. So the police should be looking into a theory that they're all linked and that this is linked and this is one person or a series of people doing this. So between 2008 and 2014, there were 85 people that died in rivers, canals, or other waterways in Greater Manchester. Like I said, and that is a much, much larger area. That's like hundreds of square miles, as opposed to just like the city center. 72 of these victims were men. Just like in the smiley face thing here in the United States, almost all of the victims are men. So most of these cases, now the police investigated all of these cases, obviously, because some of these men were ones that like went missing and then their bodies weren't found until much later on because, when you fall in the water, your body kind of tends to move, like with the current, and sometimes it's not found where it went in and whatnot. Most of these were ruled accidents. However, there were, I believe, 28 cases that came back with open verdicts in that they couldn't definitively say it was an accident. They couldn't definitively say that something else might not have happened. So these are the cases that a lot of people are kind of focusing on because these are the ones where they couldn't come down definitively and say that they were accidents, even though some people that are more like conspiracy theory minded think that, the police are covering up and like all the other ones aren't accidents either. But I don't really buy that. I can see how there's like some people being curious about these 28 particular cases because they couldn't, come down and say, yes, we definitely know this was an accident because there were maybe other weird mitigating circumstances. But the other ones, I'm pretty sure they just kind of dismissed them because they were just already accidents. Now, what I should say, so I'm going to go into a couple of the cases, and a couple of these to me seem like accidents, although a couple of them do have some unusual details that maybe suggest something else was going on. So one of these guys, one of the victims was named David Plunkett. He was 21 years old. Now, he was actually found dead in Manchester Ship Canal in 2012. Now, the creepiest thing about him, he had been at a party, or he had been like at a music thing. I think it was like for Budweiser. It was like some kind of Budweiser promotional event. They had bands and shit like that. So it was in Trafford Park, and he apparently had phoned his parents, or had texted his parents and said like he wasn't really that drunk, or he was on his way home because he was like, he'd been out all day or whatever. Now, what happened was that the phone rang at his parents' house, and his parents picked it up, and it was his number, but they didn't hear anything. It was just silence. So his mom keeps trying to get him to talk, but she doesn't hear anything. Then all of a sudden, like she's on the phone for like, it's like a long time, like an hour or something like that, she said. So she's like, David, like, what are you doing? What's the matter? Like, where are you? Are you lost or something like that? I guess she thought he went out and got drunk and, like, didn't know where he was or something. But she couldn't really hear him talking. She said she could hear somebody breathing maybe, or, like, you know, but she couldn't really hear anything else. She's like, it wasn't, like, loud. It wasn't like he was at, you know, the music venue or anything like that. It was just like he was out walking around in the street. She said then all of a sudden she heard what she's sure is her son howling and screaming. Okay? Like back now. I should note that she didn't hear anyone else's voice, and she didn't hear water splashing. However, he was found dead in the canal.
He fell in the damn water.
So, yeah. So I'm kind of wondering, like, did he just fall in, or did someone mug him and he fell in, or something?
Now, where he fell in at, or where he went in the water, is it a sheer drop into the water, or is it got like a bank that slopes
I'm not
down?
sure, because like because like I said, the Manchester Canal system is huge, and it's like it has different things in different places. Like some parts of it, you know, the canal is just like right there. It's very much like Amsterdam, where it's just like, you know, houses or bars, sidewalk, and then
okay, probably a drop off. Well, look, if you jump in the water and you hit feet first, and you're kind of like this, you don't make much noise.
That's true.
So you know, it's conceivable that she wouldn't hear him falling in, but she'd hear him fucking screaming for help.
Maybe.
Especially, and this was it cold?
This was actually, I believe it was in it was in spring.
Okay.
So it wasn't I think it was in April. But so they are speculating that maybe
swift currents. Do we know?
Not necessarily. There is a current, but not. You know, it's just a canal. There's boat locks.
Right.
And
do we know if he was a strong swimmer or a weak swimmer?
See, a lot of these I don't know.
See, you know, that's shit that's important.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in a current and you have a good person who is a non-swimmer, that's still a deadly situation.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a strong swimmer and I've been in swift currents and just fuck it, you're getting pulled out. You know, you can't fight that current.
Well, yeah, that's happened to me in the ocean before. You get caught in a rip current.
That or rip tide out in the ocean. I got pulled out.
You're in big
but I swam back. You don't go out that far.
Well, what they tell you to do,
swim with it. You just kind of
either swim with it or swim to to one side.
It's going in a big kind of like circle. It seemed like.
Yeah.
And eventually it stopped, and I just swam back. I was a little kid though, man.
Yeah.
I was scared.
Well, it's scary.
Hell,
it's scary when it happens because you're just swimming and it's like normal, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. I was lucky though. I was taught to swim. I don't even remember when I learned to swim.
I don't either.
That's how young I was.
Well, I grew up in Florida. It's like we're surrounded by water. You kind of had to.
Your parents really, better make sure
you really need to learn
swim.
how.
Yeah.
I would not advise living in Florida and not knowing how to swim.
I just don't advise it. Period.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying,
swim.
especially in Florida.
Yeah.
It's like, not only is this place surrounded by water and there's fucking lakes everywhere, but a lot of people have pools.
Yeah.
So, So I can see why, in this particular case, they thought maybe something happened to him prior to him falling in and that it wasn't an accident. Like, I can understand that. I think it probably was an accident. The police did say that his body did not have any evidence that he had been assaulted or anything like that would suggest that someone else had thrown him into the water or somebody else had beaten him up or somebody had done something of that nature. So there was another guy named Nathan Tomlinson, and he was also 21. Now, he had been out at a work Christmas party, so this was winter, and he disappeared, I guess it was in like early December. I don't think it was like right on Christmas. But they didn't find him for like 2 months. Now, this was in the River Irwell. Now, they thought his death was suspicious, at least his parents did, because his coat, his phone, his passport, and his wallet were never found. So, I'm not sure if he was robbed or if he just fell in and the stuff just fell out of his pockets and then they just never found it because it's in the water and it just like got swept away or whatever. Like, he still has clothes on and shit, but all of his shit was gone and they never did find it. So some people have speculated that maybe that was a robbery gone wrong or something like that. So you can see like why the serial killer theory has kind of taken hold, because a couple of these cases do have little details like that that could suggest that something bad happened. I'm not saying that it's a serial killer and that's their MO is pushing people in the water.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that maybe they got mugged and the canal was right there and like the guy took their shit and the guy just like fell in or pushed him or whatever.
One of the reasons why I'm going to go against the serial killer drowning people fucking theory, serial killers don't have that as a motive. Serial killers are rapists. They're serial rapists. They don't want to push somebody in the damn water. They can't rape them. You know what I mean? So that's the typical serial killer. So I'm going to say it's probably not what's going on.
It just seems like a very odd...
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
Now, it's not to say that some of these aren't crimes.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure some of them are. I'm sure some of them are.
Just because they're crimes doesn't mean they're connected.
Yeah.
And you know
that's
what I mean?
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
Right.
And and I don't want people to think that it's like, I think that every single one of these are accidents. I don't.
Right.
I do think because there have been a couple of documented cases over there where somebody, you know, like a gang of people like set upon somebody and mugged them and then either pushed them in or they fell in or whatever during the course of the mugging. I believe there was one crime too where the mugger actually fell in like during the attack. Yeah. So it does happen because, like I said, there are large stretches of these canals in Manchester where there is no railing. The lighting is bad, you know. Because I mean, there's huge like fucking miles and miles of these things. So in a lot of the places, yes, that there's fucking signs and railings and shit there, but some places there's not, and some places there's several feet of drop down. It's not deep on the side. In the middle, it is, but. It's only about 3 feet deep on the side, so I believe most of it you can stand up if you just go in like right by the water. But the water is very cold too, and some of the places are not well lit. And if you're completely pissed out of your skull, then that's going to make life more difficult for you. But so I'm not saying that like all of these are accidents. I'm sure that some of them happened in the course of another crime. I just don't know which ones are which. And most of the bodies that they found did not have any evidence on them that the person had been assaulted.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, just based on statistics and everything that I've learned, the ones that were crimes, okay, probably were not connected, and there's no way that was a serial killer.
Yeah, see, I don't think so either.
Serial killers are serial rapists that kill the victim. This is not going to provide the serial killer with what he's looking for.
Yeah.
Because he's getting rid of the person.
Yeah.
He can't get to it. Because where's the sexual experience?
Unless they get off on just like watching people drown, which some people do. But,
I don't know. I'm just kind of
There was a whole dark web thing. That guy that I watched the documentary on, he found like all these dark websites where like people got off. They had a fetish about drowning.
Yeah, but they're watching it and they're beating off.
Yeah, but he said the weird thing about it, though, he's like, I couldn't find any porn that was like of men drowning. It was all of like women pretending to drown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's dudes watching it.
I don't think this is a serial killer. I don't either. I think it's all... unconnected cases, maybe some of them crimes. This is just
because you have
based
to think.
I
mean, Manchester is a massive city. It's one of the largest cities in England, and it's not like an American city in terms of crime, but it does have a lot of crime, and the places around the canals, a lot of it is like really dark. A lot of it's around pubs. You're getting a lot of drunk guys running around on the street in the dark, getting in fights, shit like that.
Yeah, you bash some dude, you throw his ass in the
so there's people, preying on, and there's a large, gay community there. Like there's a lot of gay bars, like on Canal Street and stuff like that. And for a time, the LGBTQ community was worried that somebody was like targeting gay men and stuff like that because a few of the victims were. But, and I'm not saying that wasn't the case too.
I'm sure
but I don't think it's the same person doing all of it. I just think that because there's so many people in this one area, because so many people are drinking, because there's a lot of areas where you can like not be seen, it's a good place to commit a crime if you're so inclined to do that type of thing.
Some of them are going to be stuff like two dudes fucking fucked up, blasted, fighting each other. Fucking one dude throws the other one in the water. He can't swim.
And then he can't
Dude
get out.
Drowns, and he's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to tell anybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could totally see that happening.
Another
because
one-
looking at some of the photographs of
Yeah.
where these canals are, where the bars are in relation to
Yeah.
them and stuff, I could totally see that. In fact, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often.
Or motherfuckers out there fighting drunk as shit. Fucking one dude knocks a motherfucker, knocks him out, pow, and then they fucking throws his ass in the drink, and then the dude realizes, oh shit, he was unconscious.
Yeah.
And then he drowns.
Whoops.
You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. I could totally see that happening.
It's gonna be shit like that. You know
A lot of it I don't think it's planned in the sense that
Yeah.
it's somebody that's saying, I'm going to
No.
push motherfuckers in the water and kill them that way. I just
Nah.
think it ends up happening because
Some-
the
yeah.
canal is there
Yeah.
and people are drunk and it's like, and they can't get out or whatever happens.
Yeah. Some of it's fighting.
Yeah. So another creepy thing in the Nathan Tomlinson case was there was actually CCTV footage, some footage of him while he was still alive. And he had texted his parents quite early. I think it was only like 10:30 or something. Like I said, he'd been at a work Christmas party, like at a pub. And he texted him quite early. He said, I'm just drinking shandies and, I'll probably be home soon. I guess he wasn't really feeling it because, work Christmas party. In case you don't, I didn't know if you know what a shandy is.
No, I don't know what a shandy is.
I believe it's half beer, half lemonade. It's like it's like beer cut with lemonade.
Damn. That
So-
sounds terrible.
They're actually pretty good. I
Yeah.
had some over there, but that's kind of what you drink when you don't want to get too fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was just
If you
drinking
guys want
those.
to try one, we got something kind of like that here in the United States. I learned how to make it in Boston. It's called snake bite.
Yeah, those are really good, actually.
Yeah, snake bite. And a snake bite is like half and half.
They have those in the UK too.
They have them in the UK?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's like, what do you call this shit? Fucking real dark lager. What
Guinness.
is it? With Guinness. It's like Guinness extra stout with cider.
It's that's kind of like a
Cider,
shandy.
yes.
That's similar.
Half and half, yeah. There was something else, too. There was another thing that they used to do is they used to take, cider. They used to take cider and take a shot glass of something and drop it down in there and go to the bottom, boom, and it would make a cloud down.
yeah.
But I forgot what that was called.
I can't remember
And
either.
that might have been Jägermeister in that fucking shot
It
glass.
usually was. Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah.
I remember because I used to work for Van Gogh Vodka.
Yeah.
And I remember they had like a big fucking campaign for doing that, but I can't remember what I was in it 'cause that was a long
that was
time
back
ago.
when I was like fucking in my 20s, like coming out of the army. I was blasted like crazy at the Rathskeller.
All the
It's
time.
gone now.
Yeah.
You old school punk rockers know about the Rathskeller. Sex Pistols played there. That was one of the only places in the United States. I think the Sex Pistols played there.
Yeah, did
Was
they?
the Sex Pistols?
Because they weren't here very long.
Might have been a
before they got
Ramones.
kicked out.
I might have been talking about. Might have been thinking about the Ramones.
They weren't here very long.
I think it was the
their
Ramones.
tour was cut
Yeah,
short.
yeah. I don't think they made it to there. It was one of the old punk rock bands. I think it was the Ramones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they had some CCTV footage of someone that the police thought was Nathan, and they thought it was strange because even though Nathan had texted his family that he was coming home, the person on the CCTV camera appears to be walking in the opposite direction to where Nathan lived, and he was walking this weirdly circuitous route, and he was actually running and like looking behind him as though someone was chasing him, although no, they couldn't see anyone behind him. So the police thought that was a little weird, but like I said, on the body they couldn't really find anything. And it should be noted that his mom, watching that CCTV footage, and I've seen it, and I don't know how they could fucking tell who the hell that is because it just looks like a little white blur. His mom does not think that is him. The police seem to think it's him. I'm not really sure why. They don't know why he was where he was or why he was running or whatever. But it's like, I don't know if that had anything to do with anybody chasing him or anything like that. So there was another guy named Chris Bronny who was 22. Now he had been at a Stone Roses concert in 2012. His body was also found in the Manchester Ship Canal 10 days after he went missing. Now they also caught him partially on CCTV cameras. They said he came on a tram from Victoria Station and he went and got like a bag. And then he was going through the city center, and then he went onto a riverside walkway, and then the camera couldn't see him anymore, so they're presuming that he must have either been thrown or fallen into the water shortly afterward, because he went missing shortly after that. But they didn't really notice anything that unusual about what he was doing. You know what I mean? So then there was another guy named Suvik Pal, and he was 18, and he was a student at Manchester Metropolitan University. Now, this happened New Year's Eve, 2012. Now, he had been kicked out of a bar at the Warehouse Project. I heard that it was either because he was on ecstasy or because, I guess it could be and or because he was trying to butt in line for the bathrooms. Because I guess he really had to go, y'all. And when you really have to go, you really have to go. But yeah, so I've heard both things. I don't know if it was because he was on drugs or because he was trying to get in front of everybody, or both things. I don't know. But he got thrown out. And then he went missing. And 22 days later, they found his body in the Bridgewater Canal. Now, he did have drugs in his system, although they're assuming that wasn't... Because there has been some speculation that maybe some of these people are getting drugged, because I'll get into a little bit later, but there was a serial rapist operating in Manchester around this time period who did drug men with GHB and then rape them. He didn't kill them, though, as far as they know. But it was a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't unheard of.
He was a butt pirate.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
But
trying to steal a booty.
now, this particular guy, even though they did find drugs in his system, this guy was another guy that they caught on CCTV, and it appeared that he was walking with someone who they didn't recognize, or someone was following him, and they're not entirely sure who it is. Now, this guy's dad actually came... they were from India. He was just over here. The son was just over here in college. So I believe the dad either moved to England or either came over like for the inquest or the investigation or whatever. And he is convinced that his son was killed by someone and that it wasn't an accident. So he's kind of out there like campaigning and shit like that. So now I should say that I don't think it's that crazy that people are thinking that somebody is going around deliberately pushing people into the canals, because there was a case where that demonstrably did happen.
I think it does happen.
Yeah. And they caught the people involved, is what I'm saying.
I just don't think it's all connected, but go ahead.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
That's why, I'm not saying that I think that these people are doing it, but I'm just saying that that's why I can understand why people
think that
it's happening, because it does happen. I just don't think it's the same.
I don't think it's a thing.
Like it's not like a connected thing.
Yeah.
So 2013, there were 4 men and a kid who was 15, I believe. They had been going on a robbery spree around the Rochdale Canal, which is in the city center. Now, they actually did push one guy named Simon Brass, who was 40 years old, into the canal and left him there to die. I don't believe he did actually die, but they pushed him in there and were like robbing him and stuff. So they actually admitted it after they were caught. I guess he did die because they got robbery and I guess they got manslaughter. So I guess that guy did die. But so that did happen in 2013. It was a gang, and they were robbers, and they pushed him into the canal, and he died. And earlier in the same night that Simon Brass died, they had also pushed another guy into the water, and when he tried to get out, one of the gang like stepped on his fingers, like they were trying to keep him from coming out. Now, in 2018, there was another case like that. There was another guy, and he didn't want his name known, so in the media he's just called Tom. And he was cycling home along a towpath, like along the canal, like late at night. He was coming home from work or something. And he said all of a sudden, like, this guy just jumped out from the bushes and just, like, whacked him, like, off his bike. And then he knocked him into Bridgewater Canal, which is, like, really, really cold water. So the guy, like, Tom, starts trying to crawl out of the canal, and the guy, like, starts trying to kick him back in there. So at this point, I mean, this was 2018, so the guy knew, like, Tom knew, he's like, oh, shit, this must be the pusher. That, like, it was all true. You know what I mean? So this part of the towpath, and I'll get into this a little bit in a minute because they talked about this in the documentary, but there aren't any lights along. It's just pretty much like a dirt path, and then there's like a canal. It's not that deep, but and then there's like all these little houseboats, like a bunch of people live in houseboats like along this particular canal. So he just got like knocked in. Like he got out and he lived, but he did say the guy deliberately pushed him in there and then like deliberately tried to get him from coming out. So he did actually manage to get out. He reported it to the police, but told the media that he didn't think they took it all that seriously. So that's kind of where that ended. Now, I mentioned before that there was a guy who was operating around the Manchester city centre that was a serial rapist that was actually drugging guys and raping them. This was a guy named Reinhard Singaga. He was originally from Indonesia, but he was a student in Manchester. And they think that between 2015 and 2017, that he raped at least 159 people.
Damn.
He would generally pick them up in bars and drug them with GHB, and then he would rape them.
Damn.
He didn't kill anybody, though, I don't think. So, because of this happening...
I saw a thing on this dude.
Yeah.
He was a little harmless-looking motherfucker.
Yeah,
I think,
he's
too.
just like a little fella.
Yeah, I remember that dude.
Yeah. So, he was
He'd
just...
make videos about it. He's talking to the video.
Yeah.
I
He would
remember
go.
that guy,
He would
yeah.
go on like WhatsApp, and he would like
talk
brag about it.
Saying he's making all these dudes gay. That's some weird shit, man.
Yeah. So he just got convicted, I believe, in early this year, like January of 2020, and he got convicted of 159 sex offenses. I don't think it was 159 separate victims. I think it was...
and they lock his ass up, send him to prison, but that's kind of like the equivalent of locking me up in some kind of girls' school.
Tom would just be going... I just had like a
Thank
really...
you.
I just had a really funny like mental picture of Tom just like running around naked, you know. With
Did the girls go to...
And I just cracked up thinking about that. But so, because of this guy's MO... a lot of people have kind of like been bugging the Greater Manchester Police, saying like, why don't you look into this guy being the pusher? Because clearly he's going around drugging people, and it wouldn't really be that much crazier for him to just like dump people into canals or kill people or whatever. But as far as I know, he's only been convicted of like sexual assaults, like sexual crimes. I don't think he's killed anyone.
That dude was not violent. He wasn't mean-spirited. Well, I think what he was doing was mean.
Well, yeah, it's mean-spirited.
He thought he was being cool, though. I saw that dude.
Yeah, I guess.
He thought what he was
it's
doing...
real cool to like drug people into unconsciousness.
Oh, he thought it was fucking awesome. Oh, this is his first gay experience. And the dude's fucking knocked out and shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like he doesn't even if he would have enjoyed it, he doesn't remember
He thinks he's fucking bringing magic to these dudes. These dudes are fucking conked out and shit.
That's ludicrous.
Yeah.
What a ludicrous person that guy is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of people have, thought that maybe this guy, or like I said, this is another thing that's kind of like pointing to people saying, see, the pusher could be real because this motherfucker was running around and he's real and it's not that crazy. So because there was so much kind of like brouhaha about the pusher story, the Greater Manchester Police, they said, okay, well, we're just going to, in 2016, they said, we're going to do a review of all the cases, like all the open verdicts that have been like, all the people that have been pulled out of the canal, that they weren't sure, what happened to them. And after that review, they came to pretty much the same conclusion that we have just come to, that there was no connection, that there is no serial killer, that it's just, they're largely accidents. Every now and then you get a crime and maybe there is something going on there. But in the aggregate, they're thinking that these are probably accidents. Because you have to think, okay, so here's the thing. There's other cities. Another thing that kind of like makes me think that this is obviously not a serial killer is because there are other cities in England even that have like extensive canal systems or a lot of waterways, such as Bath or Bristol or even London, Yorkshire. It's like they have similar urban legends because they have similar shit happening, like people drowning in the canals. And in fact, I thought this was kind of fucked up, but in Yorkshire, their version of the Manchester Pusher is called the Yorkshire Dipper because of the Yorkshire Ripper. That's funny. There's that old English dark humor.
Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, I was like, that's kind of fucked up, but it's also pretty funny. Also, you have cities like Amsterdam, which has a very similar canal system to Manchester's, and they have a similar problem, although they seem to have more safety measures in place. One of the things that freaks me out about Manchester, and actually a lot of the people that live there too, because there's like a huge campaign that went on, particularly after the death of one college student named Charlie Pope, who was 19. Notably, his dad does think that his death was an accident, but that kind of caused him, is like, hey, can we please like have some more safety measures around these fucking canals? Because look, there's whole stretches of it where there's nothing.
Dudes are coming out of the fucking pub just stank drunk. I mean, just fucking fucked up. They're going there taking a piss in the fucking canal and falling in. Maybe hitting their head on their way down.
Yeah.
And then they're fucking hitting the drink unconscious. You're going to fucking die. I mean, anybody could die that way.
That's what I mean. That's
what I think a lot of it
very
is.
easily could happen.
Because you can say, well, he knew how to swim. But you don't know what happened before he got into the water. He might have fallen on his way down and hit
hit his head
on
and
that
knocked him
little
out.
ledge.
You're
You know what I mean?
unconscious. You can't swim when you're unconscious.
Because maybe he went out this way, boom, and hit ass first, and then fucking went up his back and he hit the base of his skull on the edge and hit the water. He was knocked out.
I've seen it happen on the side of a swimming pool
Yeah.
with sober people.
Yeah, and you can fucking be unconscious and inhale one breath of water, and that's all it takes. It kills you almost instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do feel like that there's, and like I said, there's a huge push in Manchester to, I didn't really mean to say it like that, but there's like a huge campaign, rather, that's a better way of putting it, to put more like safety railings, better lighting, shit like that. Like some of it has railings, but there's really an alarmingly large portion of it where, because I'm like looking at it going, you have got to be fucking kidding me with that. It's like I'd probably fall in that shit dead sober because I'm just a klutz.
I think statistically it's dudes pissing off the fucking side.
I think so too, and I wanted to get into this a little bit too because
Were they found with their fucking pants on?
Well, okay, now
Or with their flies open?
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay, here we
that's
go,
what I
here
was
we
gonna
go,
say
here we go.
about when they have had like statisticians and things like that look into this. They're like, we want to see like other cities like Amsterdam that have like a large canal system comparable to Manchester's. We wanted to see what their shit was. Now, it should be noted that the deaths in Greater Manchester is comparable to Amsterdam's death, even though Amsterdam has more canals than Manchester does. But there might be some other factors at play. I think Amsterdam has more safety measures around their canals, so it's harder to fall in, perhaps. So, from a statistical point of view, there are about 14 canal or river deaths in Greater Manchester per year. Which to me, it sounds like a lot, but then it kind of doesn't. You know what I mean? 14 people a year is not really that many, considering how many people live there. I mean, like I said, it's a very large city. So Amsterdam has 165 canals. They have about 18 drownings a year. Now, the vast majority of these are young men. And somebody, like a Dutch guy that looked into all this, he said, that's not specific to Amsterdam, that's something specific to men. You see the same pattern happening all over the world in cities where you have canals and waterways running in between, like, city centers where people live or where there are bars or whatever. He said, and this is a quote, in all kinds of accidents, men are always overrepresented. Men are more likely to be risk takers and more likely to walk home alone at night.
It's that goddamn testosterone.
It is. Yep. It's a poison.
Yeah. I wish I had more of it. Get ready for TRT.
There you go. They also pointed out that most drownings happened on Friday or Saturday nights, obviously. More than half of them had been drinking heavily or taking drugs.
That's what it is, man.
10% of the men's bodies had been found with their zippers open.
There it is.
So so that's what I mean. So I feel like whether this is fights, it's people just slipping and falling. Men have a thing about peeing into the water.
That damn water.
They have a thing. I don't
Leave
know.
no evidence behind.
I guess that's what I'm a girl, so I don't really know.
I don't know what it is. There's something instinctive. I think.
I know, and I've heard that from other
pissing,
dudes
fucking
too.
pissing
Like
in the water.
even when I was like researching this case, like every dude that was like, "Yeah, it's like there's something really satisfying."
Kind of instinctive. How you doing, Poop? You looking at me because I'm talking?
Yeah,
She's
the little
little
kitty
cat's right there.
like sitting right there.
Yeah,
on the
she's
desk,
looking at
like,
me just so
underneath
intently,
the
like,
camera.
what are you talking about?
Yeah, she's like, "Why are you talking?
doing?
You
Come here.
talking to me?
Come
you
here.
talking to me?"
Come here.
She's so funny.
Okay. Yeah, there's something instinctive about heading towards the water and taking a piss in it.
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to do that if you're drinking out of that same water. But if you're
Well,
just moving
I hope
through,
not.
it's maybe there's some kind of a masculine instinct to fucking contaminate somebody else's water. You know what
That
I'm talking
sounds about right.
It might be what it is. Fuck your water, bitch. Fuck your water. All right.
gonna piss
Drink
all
that. All right. And then you move on. It's got to be something that's inherited from fucking the animals. You know what I'm talking about?
Because I think that happens a lot too with, because you know how sometimes like dudes will go fishing like out on the boat and then they disappear and shit. I think
Yeah.
a lot of them are peeing off the side of the boat and,
And then
they
it
fall
fall
off.
in, yeah. And then the
And you
pants
don't
get
have
around
to.
in
You don't
there.
have to be drunk for that to happen either. Because I've fallen lots of times when I was completely sober.
See, I always thought
Not
that,
when I was peeing.
I always
but, you know.
thought that drowning was a long process, and I found out later I heard something about it on another show that had to do with forensics. All you have to do is inhale once a full breath of water into your lungs, and it basically renders you unconscious instantly. Actually,
Yeah.
we were talking about that. That dude that was murdering his wives back in the 1800s by fucking lifting their feet up while they were in the tub.
Yeah.
And it only took one breath.
And that scared the
And
shit
to
out of me
kill
because I'm like,
somebody.
look how easy that is.
Yeah. 'Cause
Humans
you
are
can't-
so fragile.
You can't sit up because your head's underneath the water and
Yeah.
it's holding their feet up. And you try to do a sit-up, but you're already in the maximum sit-up position.
Yeah.
So you can't get your head out of the water. You can drown a person in a damn foot of water.
Yeah,
by
you don't
doing
need
that.
much water.
No.
I should say.
And all they have to do is take one breath underneath there, and they're rendered unconscious
Pretty
instantly.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I mean, drowning, I think it's, as far as I can remember, and I don't know if this is correct, but I'm pretty sure this is correct. I think it's the third most common cause of accidental death in the world.
If you fell in and you had a startled response and went, would you? That
Yeah.
might render you unconscious.
Well, that's what
instantly.
I mean. And I want to get into this in a second, too, but before, here's another thing, like, that's kind of, like, against the whole serial killer theory, is that if there was somebody that was deliberately going around pushing people into canals to kill them, let's say, like, for the sake of argument, you would think that there would be, like, people that were too strong for the dude, who got out of the canal, you know what I mean, and then later reported it and said, hey, some fucking crazy person tried to push me into the canal and I crawled back out. But you're not really seeing that. It's like there's a couple cases, like I said, the case of the pseudonymous Tom, who was knocked into the canal and then, like, you know, the guy, like, tried to kick him back in there. But as far as I know, that's pretty much one of the only times that that's happened. You'd think if there was, like, if there was a guy, like, going around, like, pushing 85 fucking people in the water who all died, it's like that there'd be lots and lots of survivors, because not everybody is going to die when they go in the water. Somebody is going to kick that dude's ass, is what I'm saying. Especially when you're picking on, and this was something that I think I mentioned when we were talking about the smiley face murders. It's like, there's a reason why serial killers and stuff like that usually target women and children, because targeting 20-year-old men is not usually the best idea,
Get your ass beat.
because one of them is going to beat your ass. You know what I mean? It's like, especially serial killers who tend to be kind of weedy little
They're pussies.
motherfuckers anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Most of them.
you're gonna get your fucking ass handed to you one of these days, and I feel like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I want to get into a little bit, like I said, this guy who has a channel called Curiosity, and he did like a 2-hour documentary. It's in 2 parts. It's on YouTube. You can watch it, about the Manchester Pusher case. One thing that he mentioned, now this is hilarious, because at the end of the first episode, he was like, I am going to get piss blind drunk and throw myself into the canal and see if I can get out. Like, he had, like, safety measures and
Right,
shit.
yeah,
like, he
yeah.
had all these divers.
He had guys with
And
okay, yeah.
with him that, you know, he
Yeah.
had, like, 4 divers set
That's a
up.
good experiment.
And he had them, like, go and, like, sweep the bottom of the
Yeah.
thing and all this other kind of
That's
shit.
a good experiment.
But it turned out that, like, when the second one, he's like, okay, well, 3 of my divers, like, bowed out and they didn't want to do it, so I only have 1 diver left. He's like, which means that I probably should not do this drunk, because he was talking to the divers, and the diver was even, like, on camera going, just
What?
for the record, I think this is a stupid idea.
Would they put a rope on him?
No.
They should have just tied a rope on him.
Yeah, but he's like, not only could you fall in the canal and, you know, the canal water's really cold, he's like, but it could be, like, there could be shit down in the bottom that, like, you stab yourself on. It's like, because who fucking knows what's down there? He's like, also, this water is full of fucking diseases because everybody's been pissing in it, like, because all the men have to piss in the fucking water. And so he's like, so you could get all kind of like fucking dysentery or whatever.
Well, fucking contaminate your water.
Yeah. So the guy was like, but something interesting did come of it. So he's like, so I decided, he's like, I'm still going to do it. He's like, but they told me I probably shouldn't do it drunk because I only have one guy, and it's like, I don't know if he can pull me out and shit. So he actually did go there, and he just threw himself into the canal. He checked the depth and everything like that first. And an interesting thing happened. As soon as he threw himself into the canal, it was only 3 feet, like by the wall and shit like that. It was so cold that it took his breath away.
Yeah.
And he was like he came up, because he could swim and stuff. He came up and he couldn't talk for several seconds. And he said that when he researched it, he's like, when you jump into water this cold, it's your fucking your, what's your breathing tube called? Your fucking trachea
esophagus.
or whatever your trachea is, what it is.
Right.
That it just kind of closes up because it's trying to protect like your brain and like your vital organs and stuff. So it's trying to like, keep you from like dying, really, even though it's probably going to kill you faster. But he's like, so interestingly, he's like, me jumping into the canal, he's like expecting it. He's like, 2, I was sober. 3, it was daytime. And he's like, even then, I fell in he got out, like, obviously. He's like, because it wasn't that deep and, he could just climb out. But he's like, can you imagine if it was pitch black, if you were piss blind drunk, and you fell in the water? And he was like, the water was actually like way, 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 way colder because he did like the temperature on it than what would cause hypothermia to begin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's like, had I stayed in this water, I would have died of hypothermia. So you can see like him just jumping in there, and he's like, and I was expecting to jump in. You know what I mean? So if you were just like really drunk, trying to walk home or something like that,
you're not mentally prepared.
You're not really prepared, and it's dark. You slip or something.
What
like
if it's
that.
a little bit deeper?
Yeah, well, in the middle it is, because he noted, he's like, most of the canals, it's like they're only about 3 feet.
I'm talking about the guys that fell in and died.
Yeah.
What if they fell in at places where it was a lot deeper where they fell in? Maybe if it was 6 feet or 7 feet.
Yeah.
Where you couldn't stand up.
Well, he said that. He said what they are all like, and he's like, I don't know if all of the canals are like this, but most of them are like this because most of them are from the Victorian era, and they made them all pretty much the same way. He's like, right there by the wall, it's 3 feet, you can stand up, but then it slopes.
Yeah.
And he's like, when you get into the middle, you can't stand up. It's 6, 7, 8 feet
How
deep.
far away from the bank is it?
Not very far.
Like, what are we talking? Did you 5 feet? 6 feet?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so that's
maximum.
easy.
If you got you
had no momentum. The next thing you know, you're in the deep part. You can't stand up. It's
and like I said,
cold.
if it's cold, it's dark.
You're drunk as fuck.
You can't see. What if you get like disoriented and
gasp,
you can't?
You gasp and take in some water, and then you're fucking gagging and choking, and your head goes underneath the water. That's it. You're fucking gone.
That's what I mean. So I feel
and it
like
could happen fast.
I feel like that could happen really, really easily.
Yeah,
like I said, that could happen when you're sober. Like, what if you're just like, well, if like, even if it was a girl, for example, what if she's like trying to walk in high heels and she just slips and falls in and nobody's around?
Yeah.
And this guy was saying, he's like, even though I'm sober and it's daytime and everything like that, he's like, I fell in. He's like, I jumped in. He's like, but I couldn't talk for several seconds. So it's like, if I was trying to scream for help, I couldn't. Yeah. Because it was so cold that it just like constricted his airway.
Now, I've told stories many times, you know what I mean? My dad being from Mississippi and growing up in the summers in Mississippi all the time, and me being born in California, my aunt take me up to the Sierra Nevada mountains up in fucking Redwood Forest all the time, We had badass fucking rivers up in the parks. They were ice cold water, mossy rocks, lots of fucking rapids. We had fun. Naked teenage girls running around everywhere. I told this fucking story. It was from another era. This is going back to the 70s. People just don't understand how dangerous water is.
Yeah.
Along those riverbanks, there was signs saying "Be careful," with pictures, black and white pictures on the signs of dead bodies floating back up.
That's hardcore, yeah.
Yeah, back in those days where they didn't play.
Yeah.
And they usually had those around wherever there was a waterfall.
Yeah.
Because people like to go over the waterfalls.
Of course.
These are huge waterfalls because
Yeah.
the water was like fucking 7 feet deep going over a waterfall.
Stupid idea.
And like a 20 or 30 foot drop down into a fucking waterfall basin that might have been 40, 50 feet deep. You know what I mean? Fucking, and then the river kept on going. No, we'd go over them. Fuck right, we'd go over them. It would just let you know that what you were doing was dangerous.
They're like, look, we're washing our hands.
Yeah,
of you.
yeah. We'd go over
At
them
this
anyway.
point.
And it would. What was weird is that you'd go over, and sometimes the waterfall would press down on you for a few minutes. You couldn't float back up to the top. It took a while for
That's
you to,
what would scare me,
to
honestly.
bounce and bob, all right, around a little bit. And then sometimes you'd come up, and when you come up, you were under the waterfall, not outside of it, like under the cliff.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, shit. And you had to take a breath and then fucking dive back under and go
Yeah.
through all that again to end up on the other side of the waterfall so the rapids could take you away.
No, thank you.
Yeah, we were doing that when I was doing that when I was fucking young, man. That's part of the reason why I'm fucking crazy. Because you know what I mean? You know how it was
Yeah.
when we were kids back in the 70s. And back in the 70s, we were
I was a kid in the 70s too, but I'm not crazy.
we were fucking feral. You know what I mean? We didn't have helicopter parents that said, don't do this, don't do that. They were like,
That's
nah,
true.
get the fuck out of the
We
house.
were kind of, they were kind of like sick of looking at us.
They were
They're
sick
just
of
like, go
like, get the
outside and
fuck out.
play. Come back when it gets dark.
Yeah, so fun.
Just be quiet.
So I think the people that are talking about this are city people who do not have an experience with fucking water.
Well, to me, like
Water
I said,
is fucking dangerous.
seeing the way that this is set up,
Yeah.
it just, in fact, I'm surprised that it doesn't happen more often. Because, like
Yeah.
I said, literally, in a lot of these places, yes, there are like boat locks, there's all this other kind of stuff, and yes, there's railings in some of the places, but there literally be like a whole street of bars, like about 10, 12 feet of pavement, and a canal.
Yeah.
There's no railing,
Right.
there's no nothing.
The
So it's
difference-
like you're fucking drunk.
And you're in clothes, warm and dry,
Yeah.
taking a nice comfortable piss off the side of the
Nice,
fucking...
comfortable piss.
Nice comfortable piss off the side down into the water to contaminate somebody else's fucking water. And without warning, your ass fucking slips and falls.
Slips and falls.
Your
It's
fucking
very,
ass,
very easy.
your ass hits the fucking ground, boom, and then you fall in and your head hits the fucking side on the way down.
I could totally see that
And you're in the
happening.
fucking cold water and you didn't expect it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you're gasping and breathing in fucking water and you're drowned.
Yeah.
Drowned with a T on the end. And before you know it, and you're just a body. Now, I was doing all that dangerous shit as a little kid with my aunts and my uncles and all and shit like that, and all the teenage naked girls and shit that were running around. But we knew what we were mentally prepared
Yeah.
to go into ice cold fucking rapids
Yeah, that's what I mean.
and to go over waterfalls and shit like that. You know what I mean? And the water was cold, but it wasn't cold outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and we weren't wearing clothes, just wearing like swimming trunks.
Yeah.
Because if you get wet, just like
The clothes
in the
are heavy.
your fucking clothes are heavy.
Because they have shoes on and,
then
everything.
you try to struggle your way out, and you're not getting any warmer when you get out of the water.
Yeah.
You're fucking cold because
Yeah.
your clothes are now fucking cold.
Yeah.
So hypothermia and shock can set in fast, I think.
Yeah, and like this guy, when he just jumped into the canal, and he said, look, hypothermia starts to set in at 21 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
He's like, he just put the pole, like the thermometer, like in the canal for like literally like maybe 5 seconds. 11 degrees Celsius. That's how cold that fucking water was.
Yeah.
And he said, look, he's like, I fell in. He's like, and I knew I was going in, and it was
Yeah.
daytime, and I
Yeah.
was sober. And even then, he's like, yes,
was
even
still
though
a
I
shock.
got out easily,
Yeah.
but it was still like, it was so cold that
mi-
it just took his breath away.
The mind has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
If you're not mentally prepared for something, you can be overwhelmed mentally by
Yeah,
stimulus
very
that you weren't-
easily,
you
very
weren't-
easily.
And I think that's partly what's happening.
I think that's what's happening too.
Especially when they're drunk.
Yeah.
If you're fucking drunk, that compounds it.
Because interestingly, one thing that happened in a lot of these cases, not all of them, but it did seem like a significant proportion of them, the dudes would go missing after they'd been kicked out of a bar. So I kind of feel like if you've been
They're
kicked
fucking
out of a bar, you must, in England,
Yeah. Oh, you're
then
fucking,
you must either be on drugs,
Yeah, you're
or
fucked up.
really, really fucked up.
You're
Now, some of
fucked
some of these people may have been drugged by other people. There
Yeah.
is like I said, some evidence to suggest that, but You have to. I feel like you have to be pretty messed up. Well, even in the United States, you have to be pretty messed up and causing a lot of trouble before they will throw you out.
That's all sealing the deal for me. Having a wide range of experience with fucking cold water, from an early age, and fucking alcohol and booze, and military experience, in the infantry. That's what's happening to them. They're shit-faced fucking drunk, taking a piss. They fall in the water, totally unprepared for it. Maybe they hit their head on the way down. Maybe not. But still, the shock of that, hitting that cold water under those conditions, it just sends them...
Even if you could swim.
It sends them fucking, into a fucking mental zone, and it just saps the will right out of them.
And sometimes when you're like really, really drunk, you don't even really fucking know what's going on.
Yeah.
Or you don't really care what's going on.
Yeah.
You're just like, whatever.
Or something about hardship, it can sap the will out of you. And that freezing cold, it just, oh, fuck it. Oh, fuck it. Oh. And
and like I said, I can totally see that happening. And it would happen like really, really quickly. Real fast, yeah. It would happen really quickly.
That's
like before you even know. And honestly, some of these guys probably aren't even taking a piss. And I'm not saying some of them haven't got pushed in by people that were trying to mug them, or people that were just... Maybe someone were peeing and somebody thought it would be funny to be like,
they just stumble towards the water because they see a reflection on the surface. It could be something that simple.
Yeah.
You're not thinking right. And then you hit and it fucking instantly incapacitates you. And you just, lose it.
Yeah. Because some of these were, like you said, were in the wintertime. And I've seen some pictures of the canal in the wintertime and it had like fucking ice floating in it and shit. So
it would be the equivalent of falling into a fucking fire. Mm-hmm. Remember that dude? You see the video of that dude at the Burning Man who ran into the bonfire?
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. I wonder what he experienced. And the whole crowd was like, whoa. I mean, did he feel that?
Depends on what drugs
he was on. He ran right into that damn fire.
I guess it depends on what drugs.
Committed suicide.
Yeah, that was pretty
Huge
crazy.
bonfire.
I wonder if he really knew what he was doing, or if he just...
I think he did.
He just wanted to go out in a blaze.
He wanted to fucking commit suicide and everybody to see it. So he ran right into the bonfire. Fucking, he saw him go right into those flames.
Yeah.
I could imagine, man. He was just as a dead run. Went right into it, underneath there. I'd imagine he just... Every bit of fucking skin just peeled right off of him.
Probably.
Did he take a deep breath? Imagine what that would do to you. You just start screaming and
God damn it, man. It's like if you want to kill yourself, I feel like there's nicer ways to go about it than that. And plus not having to traumatize everybody else that was around having to see that shit. Selfish.
Maybe if you're just mentally fucking prepared for it, maybe it's not painful. Maybe maybe if you're on drugs, there's a certain amount of ecstasy.
That's what I'm saying. Like maybe it was like a drug thing.
I read this thing about a Buddhist. It's like an old Buddhist fucking story about some guy who wouldn't submit to some king, and he was a Buddhist. So the king fucking ordered him cut into pieces, joint by joint, starting with his fucking fingers and his toes. And he relished each dismemberment as if it was a fucking gift, and down to where he was nothing but just a stump with a head, and then
he was a masochist.
Yeah,
he's like, whatever, I love it.
Well, he just stayed at peace with himself. You know what I mean? And decided he wasn't gonna fucking give in to the fucking tyrant. Damn. The mind is a powerful fucking thing.
It is indeed.
I
don't know if I'd be doing that though.
No, I'd be like, yeah, King, whatever you said, bro. Your power only extends a few 20, 30 miles outside this city. Whatever you say,
like,
bro.
I'll just sneak out and
I'll sneak out later. I don't understand these people trying
to once a finger or two gets cut off, you might be like, yeah, it kind of sucks. I don't really want to put up with that.
You got it, King. You the man.
Well, that's kind of more my style. I just kind of like pretend I'm going along with whatever people's agenda, and then I just then
disappear.
Then I just do my own shit.
I should keep hitting this thing. Right?
All right. So, do you want to take a break and then
let's take a break?
We'll come back. And,
I think we pretty much solved this one. I think it's statistical and accidents, and it's.
I think so too. Like I said, I'm sure a handful of them are probably crimes or happened in the commission murders. Of crimes, muggings, things like that.
But they're not connected.
But I don't think they're connected to one another. And I think largely they are probably accidents. And seeing the canals in pictures and videos and stuff like that, it seems like it could happen really, really easily, is what I'm saying. So we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Sophie Lancaster case. And we're also going to talk about Angus Sinclair and the World's End murders. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Look at Pokey. She is living in the closet still, looking for that lizard. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Look at this face. Look at this face. Look at this little belly. Look at her little drumsticks. Yeah. You done doing that? Oh, okay, lick your butt. There you go. As soon as I start filming her, she's like, I'm gonna lick my butt now. Yeah. Okay, you get on with that.
You love true crime. I love true crime. And I've spent the last 3 years compiling a series of the most intriguing unsolved murders of the 20th century. It's called The Faceless Villain, and Volume 3 is available now. Featuring such fascinating cases as the Ketty murders, the Carrie Babies case, the Frog Boys, the Alcasar murders, and the Inokashira Park dismemberment incident, The Faceless Villain Volume 3 is an involving exploration of unsolved slayings spanning the years from 1980 to 1999. Pick up your copy in print or ebook formats on Amazon, or download the audiobook version from audible.com, and get ready for a chilling journey through modern crime history.
Okay, we're back on this UK crimes show. So, talked about the Manchester Pusher before. Also wanted to cover on this half of the show, the first thing I wanted to cover was the murder of Sophie Lancaster. Now, I've had several requests for this. In fact, one of them came just a couple of days ago, and I was like, hey, you're in luck, because because I've already scheduled to talk about this. This case, and I remember when this happened, it was in 2007, and I think a lot of us related to this case in particular because this was a case where a couple was attacked just at random by a bunch of teenagers who
You said that with such disdain.
Well, that's generally how I feel about teenagers. And children in general.
I remember when this shit went down, man. I was fucking seeing red. I was in my fucking late 20s when this shit happened.
I think a lot of people were.
Yeah, and I was like, I'd kill them fuckers. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. So, one good thing, it's kind of weird to say that, but one good thing that came out of this was that at least a lot of people became more aware of, because of the media behind this case and the big outcry about it, about how people who look different get targeted by these gangs of roving feral children running around England.
And what's funny is I remember this era. We've talked about this before. We talked about this with remember with those murders that happened with the goth kids that killed the religious family and all that kind and the shit that went down. And I was fucking in New Orleans working on convergence and shit like that. Anyway, this was a time where there was a pretty strong goth scene. These people are all in their 50s and 40s now. You know what I mean? It's so funny. They're fucking grown-up adults, although some of them are still goth. But anyway, they're all in their 40s and 50s now. But back in the day, we had our own scene and our own look, and really, we were fucking normal compared to a lot of people. Especially we were normal compared to fucking jocks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But Marilyn Manson came on the scene and was doing
ruined everything.
Was doing a bunch of fucking outrageous things, and based on Marilyn Manson, fucking mundanes, I call them mundanes at those times.
I've called
it's a racial slur against people
it's a racial slur.
It's a racial slur against people who are not gothic. But the mundanes started fucking with us because they thought we were all Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
When I was like, who the fuck is this dude? Who's this Marilyn Manson guy?
That's what happened to me too.
Who the what? And I really wasn't into it,
Holy shit! I remember, I remember this distinctly. And this was probably back in the late '90s, early 2000s. I'm in line waiting to go to the fucking castle in Tampa.
Yeah.
And these fucking normal ass people, these Karens or Beckys or
mundanes,
whatever you want to call them. They were a couple people in line in front of me, and you could tell because there was always a handful that would come slumming, and they just hey, let's go out and look at the freaks at this club over here. And and everybody knew about it, and they'd just be like, "Huh,
Yeah.
there's always a handful every week."
we knew
they were
about-
always different.
At
Always
that time, I
different.
was in Boston. They weren't allowed in. They didn't pass the dress
See,
code.
I always
No dress code, bitches.
I always wanted the council to have
Yeah.
a dress code, but they wouldn't
Yeah.
do it.
I know,
But
castles.
just to keep those people out. So because those people would come in and immediately they'd cause trouble. It's like they couldn't help themselves. They come in and just start groping one of the dancers.
The Castle's a fucking big goth club here in fucking Florida.
In Tampa,
It's
yeah.
in Tampa.
Been there forever.
They actually talked about it on Saturday Night Live.
They did
on
indeed.
on Goth Talk. Fucking, they had them talking about the difference between Orlando and
It's
fucking
a
Tampa.
it's a rad club.
And we're in the fucking Orlando Tampa fucking thing now, but. It's funny because now we do all the graphics for the DJs at all these clubs.
Yeah.
So fucking it's funny.
Yeah, I
'cause
did all the posters.
We're
for
friends with them all.
Absolution Fest and all that stuff.
We
over
go
in
to all
Tampa.
that shit. But back in those days, man, they used to fuck with us about how we looked, and they made all these weird.
Yeah, these normal people in line at the castle.
yeah.
Hey, Marilyn Manson. That's
like,
it.
what
That
the
is
fuck? We don't like
quote
that dude.
unquote what
Yeah,
they said, and
yeah.
they said it like they were like announcing it,
And like,
I love Marilyn
And
Manson.
we're like, who's Marilyn? I'm like,
and everyone
fuck
just
that
looked
dude.
at them like,
Yeah.
"What the fuck are you talking about? Go away."
We're like, that dude really had nothing to do with the scene.
Yeah.
Although
I'm like, I've been dressing like this since the '80s.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
my friend actually kind of came up with him, Dimitri, because Marilyn Manson's from here. He's from Florida.
He is, yeah.
And Dimitri, who's a DJ at fucking the local club that fucking we support, do all the fucking flyers and all the promotion for us. He knew Marilyn Manson before he was Marilyn Manson.
When he was Brian.
When he was Brian. Okay, so he is a local guy. You know, we know. People
I don't think he was
that-
born here, but he lived here.
He
for a
lived
long time.
around here,
Yeah.
so we know the people that came up with him. I ran into him in New Orleans, down the French Quarter. Him and fucking dude from Nine Inch
Trent
Nails,
Reznor.
Trent Reznor. Yeah,
I love this.
I got
story.
stories about both of them. She's laughing because she knows the
I know
story.
this story.
They weren't allowed into the fucking club. One of these clubs I used to go to was a private club called the Convent, which was a fucking speakeasy. It didn't have a fucking
Liquor license.
all right? Jerry Springer was fucking hanging out in there all the time. Jerry Springer, you guys don't know, fucking Jerry Springer was fucking awesome. Me and Jerry Springer were fucking watching a fucking fetish show going on, and it was between a husband and a wife. And it was private. It was just for me and Jerry fucking Springer. I was having a goddamn out-of-body experience, all right? Me and Jerry Springer watching this shit. Anyway. That was back in the days. That was back in the days when the goth industrial scene was a very underground, private fucking scene. It was cool dudes and goth strippers and their boyfriends. And goth chicks. And then this Marilyn Manson dude came and made all this shit fucking mainstream.
That's what I mean. He ruined everything.
And that's not what the scene was. It didn't have anything to do with that.
He ruined everything.
He was mainstream when he appeared.
It's kind of like how I blame Nirvana for fucking up the punk alternative
right,
rock scene.
exactly. That's a good analogy.
I like Nirvana's music. I'm just saying it, and it probably wasn't their fault that Nevermind
Yeah.
was like a huge hit, but I remember distinctly the time before Nevermind came out and the time after Nevermind came out.
For me, goth started in Detroit back in the 80s after I fucking came back from fucking Brazil and was hanging out with my high school friends that when I was in, because I went to high school in two different places. When I was in Trenton, Michigan, and I was hanging out fucking the Shelter in Detroit and St. Andrews Hall. If you look in the Majestic Theater, if you look at the first and last and always album from fucking Sisters of Mercy that was taken right outside the Majestic Theater, the inner sleeve with Sisters of Mercy, that was the scene I came from. And it was a different time. It was about Skinny Puppy from across the fucking way, you know, with Kevin Key and all those guys. And I used to run into the fucking Skinny Puppy at fucking City Club. And at fucking, there was another place called Industry. It was in Canada. And then there was fucking City Club. And then there was fucking the Shelter. And I used to see those guys, and I wasn't cool enough to hang out with them. Now those dudes are fucking super, super famous. And there was another band called Kitty with a Whip. That blew my fucking mind. And that was before we had all this technology. You know what I mean? There were no home computers. And for me, that's where it started. I don't know why I went down this fucking path. It's just that, just talking about the evolution of that fucking thing and growing up in it.
It's relevant because we're
It's
talking
relevant to
about
what happened to these fucking jackholes jumping on a random British girl who looked cool
it was
as
a couple.
shit. Yeah, it was a British girl with
Her
her friend.
boyfriend just happened not to die.
Right. And they just look cool as shit to me. They're just like regular people that I'd see at the fucking club, and they got
They're
jumped.
not that weird looking.
No,
I
no.
don't think.
I didn't think so either. I was like, and these fucking dickheads jumped on this couple and beat one of them to death. This cute fucking girl for just looking cool, and she didn't really look any like. If I were to say like in
She
Boston,
didn't look that strange.
She didn't
I
look
don't
strange
think.
to me.
No.
That was nothing compared to what we were wearing to fucking Boston in the 90s at fucking...
Right, that's what I'm saying.
At fucking Man Ray.
And the night
It's
that they
nothing.
got attacked, her boyfriend was just wearing like a hoodie and jeans.
Yeah.
And she was just wearing normal clothes. I mean, the only thing, like they had a couple facial piercings, like they had those snake bite piercings.
Yeah.
And she had like dreads, but that's about it. They weren't like all decked out like fetish or anything like that. They were just like they'd been at a pub or something and they were just like going back home.
They're just lucky that they didn't run into me. All right. At that time, I was fucking just out of the military. I was fucking crazy ass fucking civilian. I was carrying guns at that time. And I was carrying dirty. I'm going to be honest. This is before I started getting into the shit that I later got into, working for fucking state police and doing stuff post-service. You know what I mean? I was carrying dirty back then. Had they jumped on me and say like my first wife or one of my ex-girlfriends, they would have been nothing but bullet holes. I would have killed every one of them back then.
Yeah.
All right.
And
They're
I
lucky
don't
that-
think anyone would have blamed you.
I would have made a
honestly.
clean getaway and they'd still be looking for me.
Yeah.
You know, they're lucky that was England.
Because, yeah.
That shit would not fly anywhere here in the United States. No.
Well, I kind of feel like, okay, so this is what happened. This happened in 2007. So Sophie Lancaster, she was born in 1986. She was actually planning on going, she hadn't gone to college yet, but she was planning on going to college for English. Her boyfriend was named Robert Malby. He was 21 years old, and he was an art student in Manchester. They had been going out for 3 years. By all accounts, were talking about the future. They were very serious. They lived together and everything like that. So they're walking home on August 11th, 2007. Like I said, they'd just kind of been out in the town or whatever, like out at a pub or whatever. And they were walking home about 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, from what I understand, I thought at first they were walking through like, or past like a skate park or something where like a lot of other teenagers like hung out. And I thought that a group of girls like approached them and were like, I don't know if they were like saying, oh, you guys look cool or something like that, or they were just trying to like bum cigarettes off them or whatever. But they seemed like really friendly, so they were kind of like talking to them and like giving them a cigarette or whatever. And then all of a sudden, this was in case I didn't mention it, this was in Bacup, which is in Lancashire. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I saw a documentary about it, and that was how they pronounced it, so I hope that's right. So this group of boys, I don't know if the group of boys was associated with a group of girls, like if the girls had got them to come over there like to lure them or whatever, or if it was just like a coincidence. Because like I said, this was a skate park and a lot of teenagers hung out there, so they might not have been. It might have been like a setup or anything. But so this gang of teenagers started following Sophie and Robert, and then there was like 5 of them, and then they jumped on them, beat Robert Malby unconscious, and this detail like fucking broke my heart, right? So Robert Malby is beaten unconscious. Sophie wraps her body around him to protect him, and then the boys start kicking the shit out of her too.
It's just unimaginable to me. Unimaginable.
Can you imagine?
No, it's
And
unimaginable.
so to say they were just like kicking her head like it was a fucking football.
No, unimaginable to me.
Just random.
I don't understand how that could happen in the Western world.
Yeah, like what
You know
the
what I mean?
fuck is this? And
I
like
don't
when these kids like went to trial, like one of the judge said something like he said something like you're fucking, I can't even remember what he said. It was like some quote is like you're just fucking like not even human or like
Yeah.
something like that. It's like, this is, he called them like feral animals.
Yeah, yeah. I would have to make, how many were there?
There were 5 of them
I would
that they know of.
I would make 5 brain slushies.
Yeah, it's
know
like,
what a brain
I'm
slush is?
sorry,
That's
there's
right,
like
take-
no excuse for this.
Pow, pow, pow. It would all be at fucking point blank range. And you know, I'm not into fucking take it out on our motherfuckers, you know what I mean? But in a situation like that,
I think in this situation it's justified.
You
And
just
I
gotta
don't
be
give a
fucking
shit
put
that these
down.
kids are 15 years old. That is old enough to
no,
to know
15,
better.
15 years old
When
is
I was
old enough
15,
to die. That is old enough
When
to die.
I was 15, I knew that was not good to do that.
There
shit.
have been
That's not that young.
thousands and thousands of African boy soldiers younger than 15 that have died for much less. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's big enough to die.
Like I said, you know.
do that to fucking these are helpless civilians,
Yeah.
and you've attacked them.
And they're just like walking. They didn't
This-
do anything
yeah.
to anybody. They were just like walking home, and these particular 15-year-old kids just thought they looked funny, or thought they looked weird, and thought, "Hey, we're just gonna kick the shit out of them," and they just thought it was
And beat 'em to
hilarious.
death.
And they just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the thing about it, there were a bunch of other kids at the park too, because for a time the police were looking into maybe arresting more people because they didn't know if more people were involved or if more people were just like watching and didn't do anything, or there was some other shit going on. Like 5 people ended up being convicted, but they didn't know if they didn't have enough evidence to like convict anybody else. One 15-year-old kid did call for an ambulance. And the call said, you know, it's 999 over there. It's not 911. But he said, and this is a quote, "We need an ambulance at Baycup Park. This mosher has just been banged because he's a mosher." That's what they call them.
Okay.
For whatever reason. I'd never heard that term, but okay. Yeah. So later on, some of the people that had done it, and like I said, this is another reason for just like fucking wiping these motherfuckers off the face of the earth. Because some of the people that had been involved in the crime later on bragged to their friends that they had done something good. And they also told people at the scene, "There's 2 moshers nearly dead at Baycup Park. You want to see them? They're a right mess." They just thought it was funny.
Yep.
They just thought it was fucking funny.
Yeah, those dudes probably ended up in fucking prison, and then fucking years later they're like, "What the fuck was I thinking?"
You know what? They
Dumbasses.
probably didn't even think that. They
Maybe
probably
not.
still think it's funny because dudes like that, I feel like they don't grow out of that. You know what I mean? I just feel like they don't.
You know what's funny though? I think about this, and I'm trying to think: do we have people like that here in the United
Yes.
States?
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
But to how many times has this actually happened in the United States? Remember, I told you the last time fucking anybody ever said any shit to me when we were fucking decked out, ready to go to the club, was over at the fucking gas station over at 7-Eleven. And it was a lawn crew, fucking burly motherfuckers, and all they did was just tell me how awesome I looked. Remember that shit? It's changed a lot.
It's much better because like back in the 80s.
I was putting on a show for them.
Yeah,
They were
I
like, "What the
remember
fuck?
that.
Why are you dressed like that?" This is why
I
I'm going.
remember
I'm
that.
hosting the club. And they're, "Oh, you hosting the club?" And so, "Yeah, I'm hosting the club." And then they wanted to dance and shit.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's not the way it was back in the 90s.
No,
Not the way it was back in the 90s.
it was not.
They didn't get it. They didn't.
Well, in the 80s and 90s, there was no, you know, in a way, I guess we can thank Marilyn Manson for that. Just
in a
because-
way, I guess, man.
I guess even
Eventually it broke through.
though he kind of
he powered through it.
But yeah, in the 80s and 90s, you have to understand that a lot of people didn't have any frame of reference.
Right. They didn't know what it was.
They didn't know what it was, so they just thought. I mean, when I was in high school, everyone just called me a Satanist, which I thought was
that was
which I thought was very
left over
funny.
from the Satanic Panic.
But now, I mean, I was a girl, so I got bullied a lot, but I didn't get physically beat up. However, several of my male friends did get physically beat up for wearing eyeliner or having Robert Smith hair or something like that. It happened quite often. So, you know, and my brother was he was in a punk band, so that we were kind of like all hung out with like the punks and shit too. And there was a lot of shit going on there too, because in DeLand, which was only about 20 or 30 miles from where I grew up, there was a large skinhead contingent. So every time there was a punk show, they would all come over and start fights with people.
There were skinheads in Florida.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, Nazi skinheads, whole
Nazi skinhead, yeah.
whole 9 yards.
They were up in Boston.
The fucking white laces on the
Yeah.
boots and the fucking
Okay.
all that.
They
shit.
had them up in Boston.
DeLand, there was like, for some reason, there was like a big group of them in DeLand. And every time you would have a punk show in Daytona, and like I said, I went to all the punk shows in Daytona because my brother was in a punk band and he like opened for a lot of bands there. And so every time you'd have a fucking show, you'd have this fucking group of assholes turning up, doing their little Nazi salutes and all that other kind of crap. And then they would have to get their ass beat, which they usually did.
By who?
Happily.
By
the other punks.
Oh, okay.
Like, as soon as they turned up, everybody's like, all right, here we go.
No, we had those in Boston, but they weren't really a big deal. Not to me.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I said, it just gets tiresome that you have these losers, like, turn it up at every show, and you can't, like, enjoy the show because... You know, and it's like some band that doesn't have any. It's like, we're not going to see fucking Screwdriver or anything like that. It's just like a regular ass punk band. And you get this fucking contingent of like 10 or 15 stupid ass motherfuckers showing up going like, hey, Hitler hit. And so we're just like, you know what?
I had skinheads trying
Shut
to
the
beat
fuck
my
up.
ass up in Boston. But it didn't have, they weren't Nazi skinheads and didn't have anything to do with fucking me being gothic. It was the fact that I ran off of the fucking band with the leader of the band's fucking girlfriend.
Well.
The guy's name was Paul Bearer. The name of the band was Sheer Terror, and fucking he was dating this.
That's a pretty good
Yeah,
band.
it was a good band. I liked it, but I ran off with his girlfriend. Her name was Lisa.
You literally ran off and
Oh
like
yeah,
you
I had
picked
to
up and
fucking
ran
take.
off.
I had to fucking take it.
You had it.
I had to take it. It was available. I had to take it. So it was. I just got
Someone
out of
left
service.
his girlfriend here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then next thing you know, I had about 20 or 30 fucking skinheads running after me, but I disappeared off into the goth clubs. They wouldn't dare follow me there. They didn't have eyeliner.
That's pretty funny. Well, I guess because I grew up in Daytona and sometimes Orlando when I could get over there. But so in Daytona, there were so few weirdos that like all the goths and punks and alternative rock people, you just all hung out together because there was only like a few of us. So we were like, man, we got to stick together. I don't care if you like punk and I like goth and you're picking on me. Even we didn't even hang out with some hippies and shit like that. Just if you were a weirdo, like you just kind of hung out all together. That's
Well, the
just
way
what
I
you
hit
did.
it, I started off in Detroit, and you got to be a weird motherfucker to even hang out in Detroit. Every white boy in Detroit was fucking weird. All right. They had all kinds of gangbangers. I'd find dead bodies in the fucking dumpster out in the back behind my apartment all the time, fucking feet sticking up, you know what I mean? But as long as you were a white boy, they wouldn't fuck with you.
Yeah.
They just wouldn't. You get
Well,
along
they
with
don't have no beef with
There's no beef. I got along with every fucking brother that was up there. You know, but they were killing each other behind the dope gang.
Well,
you
like
know?
I said, they didn't have any beef.
They didn't have any beef with me. But then I ended up going to Boston, and then, like you said, you got skinheads, and then you had goths, and then you had college students and shit like that, and it was a big clusterfuck. But I don't know, it was all right. It was all right. I was trying to put it to words. There's no way. It was just another time.
It was, yeah. It was a long time.
And
I don't want to end up being one of those old people that that talks about like the old hippie days and stuff, like my parents and stuff used to do. But I don't know.
Now later on when I moved back to Mississippi, hanging out with my dad, and then partying in Louisiana before the other shit happened, before I was with state police stuff, Louisiana was New Orleans was cool. The French Quarter was cool because you never knew who you were going to run into. I was running into people from all over the world that I knew already. So I'd run into goths from Boston and shit. But they did have some fucking knuckleheads running through there. You know what I mean? That they just wanted to get drunk up the fucking French Quarter.
Yeah, knuckleheads.
Yeah, knuckleheads. But still, man, it was fucking cool. Me and Jerry Springer watching a fucking fetish show, private fetish show. Me and the fucking dude
Not a lot of people can say
smacking
that.
on his wife with the fucking riding crop and shit.
I remember
At the
those
fucking
days.
convent. Yeah.
in the
Pierre.
in the cages at the castle.
Guy who ran it, his name was Pierre.
Of course it was.
Pierre,
Of
yeah.
course it was.
Pierre looked like something out of fucking Interview with a Vampire. He's wearing old 1700s clothes, the long hair and shit. His wife had to let you in, they had a gate and shit. How do you know about this place? I heard about you guys on the internet. This is back when the internet was new. Oh, hey, come on in. You come on in.
High tech.
What club did you come from? I'm coming from the fucking Man Ray. It's gone now. Oh, Boston. Yeah, come on in.
See, that's kind of like I said, that is kind of why I wish, and like I said, this is a little
We were a community back then.
Well, it's a little germane to this case, too. It's
Yeah.
like, because I always wished, for that very reason, because of the knucklehead invasion, that I always wished that the castle had a dress code.
Yeah.
The only time that I went, because Florida, for some reason, like a lot of clubs here don't want to do that. It's like, oh, no, we want to make the money, and it's like, so we have to let all these fucking jerks in that are just coming in to, like, pick up
Castle
people.
had bouncers, though. Lots of them.
They did, yeah. And the only time that I ever went to somewhere that had like a really strict dress code was a place called Man Ray, which was in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, you had a Man Ray in Fort Lauderdale?
We did, indeed.
Okay.
And I went there a couple of times, and they had, I don't know if they had it all the time, but they had like pretty frequent like big fetish parties, and it was very strict. I mean, you couldn't like, if you were just wearing like jeans or just like regular pants, they're like, nope. You had to be, like, it was, like, fetish gear or full-on goth shit, or...
Would you judge a motherfucker by their boots? Their boots and their shoes.
The shoes, it gives it away.
It gives it away.
I don't know if it's like that so much nowadays, but up until the 2000s, at least, you could always tell, because even if they had, like, some clothes that looked all right and shit like that, you could always look at their shoes and be like,
yeah.
Okay.
Wrong brand.
Which makes us sound like really fucking bad, like really.
Yeah, but it's
not. Well,
it's a subculture.
Well, it's because it's a subculture, and you get a lot of people coming in like in a costume, and they don't look like that all the time.
Right, but we weren't in costumes.
That's what I mean. That was just our clothes.
That was just our full dress clothes.
I mean, you know, we looked, obviously, you know, I don't dress up like that every day because it's a pain in the ass. I don't want to wear a corset every day.
Right.
But it's like, that's shit that we wear regularly.
Right.
And when you get like some, you know, Kelly or Becky or Karen like turning up, who's usually like some account manager with like the fucking "can I see your manager" hair, and she has like decided to like goth out because she wants to like walk on the wild side.
Like goth people,
right? And it's like, so you get a lot of that. It's very very common. So you would get that. So you very quickly like learn to recognize, and some of them could pass. Mostly, but every single one of them, even if they did all this shit up here good, the shoes were always wrong. Always.
You have to understand, we wear expensive shoes, and there's a couple different brands.
There's particular types of shoes.
Demonia, okay, that's the entry level, all right, and then there's fucking, what's that shit New Rock? New Rock is the fucking, that's what I got.
That's if you got money.
I got this, a $350 pair of boots.
But they last forever, though.
That's $350 pair of fucking boots, but it's all leather. It's all the real shit.
They are beautiful.
And they'll last for 30 fucking years.
I mean, you can tell that they just went to, like, Journeys or something like that.
Put on some...
And just got, like, some knee-high black boots. And I'm like, that's just...
like, that's a $20 pair of boots.
Well, it's not just how much they cost. It's how they look. It's like, I'm just like, that's just not
right.
Gonna cut it. Right. That's just not gonna work. So, so getting back to the Sophie Lancaster case.
Yeah, this case here, bro.
So, these fucking teenagers kick these poor people...
to death, really.
To death, and, you know...
Yeah.
Her, in her case, at least. So, the police get there because one of the 15-year-olds did actually have the presence of mind to call an ambulance. You know, unlike the other ones who just thought it was fucking funny, I guess. So the cops get there, and they remarked that the faces were so swollen that they couldn't tell what gender they were.
Damn.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how... Because they were just... These kids were just literally... Like, they were unconscious. The two of them were unconscious, and they were just kept, like, stepping and kicking their heads.
Yeah. It's unimaginable.
How...
Unimaginable.
Who does that? I'm sorry.
Psychopaths.
It's like, who fucking does that?
Psychopaths. People that need to be fucking put down like mad dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'm saying they're lucky they're lucky I wasn't there.
Ooh, yeah. So
yeah, I wouldn't have fucking put up with that shit.
It's fucked up, like I said.
Yeah, I would have.
Like I said, I
would have put the Mississippi heat on those motherfuckers. They wouldn't have understood it. England doesn't understand what Mississippi can do. We're fucking stupid. We're much stupider than anything England can come up with. All right, we're Afghanistan stupid. That's how fucking stupid we are. All right.
It's true.
Kind of stupid to terrorize a motherfucker.
But yeah, so now both Sophie and her boyfriend were still alive while they were at the park. So they were both transported by ambulance, obviously, to the hospital. Now, Robert Malby was in a coma. Sophie Lancaster was also in a coma. However, Sophie, she was in a coma for a couple of weeks, and they had determined at one point that she was brain dead. So her parents had to make a
this is a
decision
fucking huge tragedy. This
to
girl
turn off her life support.
This is a huge tragedy. This girl, from what I remember, I haven't seen her in fucking 20, 30 years. Cute as a bug. Cute as a bug.
Well, and both of them were, by all accounts, and I read a review, an interview with Robert Malby, who didn't really give a lot of interviews after, understandably, after he recovered. He did give a brief one to The Guardian on the 10th anniversary, which was 2017. And to be honest with you, he sounds like a lovely human being. Yeah. And honestly, it just makes me so sad. Like, the shit that he said, I wanted to, like, quote some of it. It's like, I don't know, because I was, like, reading it, and I was like, man, you're a way better person than I am. Because he basically said, he's like, he doesn't want his whole life, because he survived. I mean, he was in a coma for a long time. He lost his memory of the incident. Obviously, his girlfriend was horribly murdered. Yeah,
imagine a bunch of survivor's guilt. He couldn't protect her. But man, come on, man. 5 versus 1 the hard way, you know what I mean?
And he seems to have had a really hard time after that. Like, you know what I mean? He, obviously went into therapy. He had to be on antidepressants for a long time, which, like I said, completely understandable, because it's like a fucking horrible situation that nobody should have to go through. And the fact that he can come out later, and he's an artist. He's had, like, exhibitions and things like that. And he said a couple of things. He's like, well, in a way, I don't like that the media portrayed it as, we got attacked because we were goths or because we looked like goths. He's like, it's kind of true, but he's like, I think it kind of sucks because they didn't know Sophie. He's like, they didn't know, and he said, like, a couple things. He's like, they didn't know, like, how she took her coffee. They didn't know anything about her. They just knew that that's what she looked like, and that was kind of like how the media wanted to play it. And he's like, so they kind of simplified it. He's like, and I also kind of felt like, I felt like it was a little bit of victim blaming. He's like, in a way, because
I remember.
Yeah, he's like, because it was almost, it's not like the media was saying, oh, they deserve to get their ass kicked because they look like that, but he's like, because they focused so much
on how they looked,
on how we looked, and he's like, and that particular night, they weren't wearing anything that outlandish or weird, or I mean, even if they were, it's obviously not.
Actually, I was there at the time, and I do remember it was kind of coming across as victim blaming. I kind of remember that.
Because it had
it came across.
Because around this time period, like 2007, like, a year or two on the front and back of that, there were a lot of crimes in the UK with, like, gangs of teenagers, like, attacking just random people because they were gay or because, they looked different or something like that. So there was kind of like a little mini rash of them, like, right around this time period. And I think that the Sophie Lancaster case kind of, like, brought that to the fore, like, in a really big way. Yeah. Because, I mean, her murder, as senseless as it was, it really had a kind of an effect of, so much support coming out. It was not even, like, just from the goth community, but from any kind of, like, alternative subcultures or, any kind of thing like that. And, there were even some pushes to expand the definition of, like, a hate crime to encompass people that, were parts of alternative subcultures or look different or something like that, because it does seem like that was the main impetus for the attack. Because, I mean, they were just, like, walking, they weren't provoking anyone, they weren't doing anything. In fact, they had, like, loaned some of these motherfuckers, or at least some of these other girls at this park, they had loaned them cigarettes prior to the attack. It was completely unprovoked. These guys just decided they looked weird and they were just going to, like, kick their asses, and they just thought it was funny. So and like I said, you know, coming as it did, like around this time period, because I remember there was like a lot of, there was a lot of like political rhetoric. There was a lot of like media attention about, these teenagers in Britain and what the fuck is the matter with them. And they're just like going around like just kicking random people's asses for being different from them and shit like that.
What was weird is that like in the United States, when we looked like that, we looked even fucking more bizarre than that. And yeah, you get people fucking yelling at you from outside their car, but they wouldn't fucking stop and fucking do anything to you.
Although, like I said, I did have some friends
rare.
that got physically beat up. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I didn't have any friends that really fucking got into it. It was, I think, because most of the time I was in places where it was too dangerous for them to do so.
It does seem to me, and like I don't know if it's like this anymore, but when I was going back and forth to the UK, I lived there for, about 6 months, 7 months at one period. But I went back and forth over there for like several years. And it did seem to me that there's kind of a little bit of a culture of, because so much of their like evenings and stuff like that is wrapped up in around drinking and around pubs and stuff like that. So, and it's not illegal to like hang out like in the streets, just drinking. In the U.S., you can't really walk around and drink. You kind of have to be in a bar or just like right outside a bar. But they don't really have like real strict laws about that. So I do feel like there's kind of like a culture, like a laddish kind of culture of just like, let's go out to the pub and then let's go beat the shit out of. Because my ex-husband, who's British, who's Welsh, he would tell me that it's like, you'd go to a fucking pub and like the dudes would get drunk and they'd just be like picking up glasses and just like breaking them in girls' faces and like shit like that. There's just like this kind of, and they would just like get in fights. He had a relative that actually got murdered that way, where they just got in a fight and he just like threw him off a cliff or some shit like that. So it's like, it does seem like there's kind of like this.
Yeah, it's weird.
This undercurrent of they just get drunk and they just want to fight.
It's weird because the United States, me coming up in the scene, the most dangerous city I ever lived in was Detroit, and Detroit is unquestionably dangerous. At that time it was the murder capital of the United States. But for me, it was safe. I could walk around gothed out, nobody would say shit to me. Well, I was also packing. I was carrying dirty.
Yeah.
I was fucking packing a fucking CZ-75
but you have to think too that
and if you're in a dangerous area, it's not safe to fuck with people. It seems like that, but when I moved to Boston, which was a safe fucking place, even though it was a little more worldly, you would get some sideways fucking glances every now and then, but it wasn't that bad. Where it was mostly more aggressive would be down in New Orleans, where it wasn't quite as dangerous. But motherfuckers would talk a lot of shit. I never got attacked, though. Not physically.
Yeah, it's like, it's hard to say because it depends where you are. It also depends on, a lot of things, too. Me being a girl, I have a completely different experience. I never got beat up, but I probably got harassed a lot more than you did. And I also got, like, a couple times, I also thought I was going to get kidnapped a couple of times, so there was that whole thing, which a lot of dudes probably don't have to worry about. But see, the thing about it is that women have a thing where it's like I don't like to walk by myself outside anywhere, like especially like downtown in a city, and especially like not gothed out or anything. I would not. I did do that for a little while, like by myself, but I would not advise it. Yeah, even in downtown Orlando. I usually had friends and I had people that I knew and shit like that.
In the Detroit era, when I was there in the late 80s, the place was dangerous as fuck. But like I said, it was mostly dangerous for guys in the drug trade. It wasn't dangerous for white guys, really.
For just like a random guy that didn't have anything.
But I was packing.
Yeah.
I was fucking packing. I was carrying dirty. Just the way it was. Had you fucked with me back in Detroit, I'd have killed you deader than shit and gotten away with it. There was no police service.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, and probably people knew that.
Yeah, there's no fucking police service. It was fucking Mad Max. It was nothing but abandoned skyscrapers and fucking falling down buildings. Nobody cared if you killed somebody there. They fucked with you. You fucking deserved it. Matter of fact, in recent times, like back in 2010, there were signs going into Detroit that you entered Detroit at your own risk because there's no police service. And in the 80s, it was the same way. There was cops, but they weren't enforcing any kind of laws. They couldn't. They didn't have the strength. They didn't have the money, which I'm sure is probably like really alien to somebody in Europe where there's an idea of law and order. There just wasn't any law and order.
Well,
in
there
Detroit.
are still some places here, and particularly, I think a lot of people like, especially like more like African American communities and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I mean, they have long said that we don't even bother calling the cops because they won't come.
They won't come, right?
And that's true.
In Detroit, when I was there in the 80s, you could walk up to somebody on the street, shoot them 5 or 6 times, bam, 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 and walk away, and that body would sit there for fucking days. It would sit there for fucking days.
Yeah.
Which is a totally alien concept to maybe... Actually, that's an alien concept to people, to most people in the United States.
Well, yeah.
Because most of the United States is not like that.
Well,
that
no.
body would sit there on the fucking corner for maybe 2 days.
Yeah, I don't think most people in most cities would put up with that.
No. And, one time I came out of my fucking dumbbell apartment to get in my fucking car, and I saw feet sticking up out of the fucking dumpster. And I looked, socks and shit, and looked in there, and there was just some dead brother. Damn, okay, he's dead. I didn't even fucking call the cops. Just got in the car and went to work. Because that's what Detroit was.
Yeah.
In 1987. 88. Yeah, 88.
Well, to me, that's what always seemed very weird about, that was one of the weirdest, like, juxtapositions, I think.
Yeah.
And like I said, it might be different now because, the time I spent in the UK was mostly, like, mid to late 90s. And, I didn't get fucked with or anything like that. Like, I got catcalled and shit like that, but I get that over here. It wasn't anything different. But there is kind of a culture over there of, the whole laddish culture, the whole, like, pub culture where they're just, like, going out getting in fights. That's kind of, like, their idea of having a good time. So, but it's just very weird because, like, then on the other side of it, it's a really civilized place. Like, a lot of that shit like that just doesn't go on.
Yeah.
But then there's this kind of, like, undercurrent of that type of shit where everybody's just, like, knocking the shit out of each other on Saturday night. It's
what
like
was
very
weird about Detroit and its violence is that you're talking about an abandoned city that seemed like it was created a long time ago that no one lived in. And it looked like something out of Beirut. Most of it's gone now. They tore it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's just the way it was. It was just a different fucking scene. So I can't imagine being in a place like England and just beating somebody to death because on the basis of what they fucking looked like. And you know what I mean?
It happens a lot, though.
But that would like happen in a good area. Couldn't happen in a bad area. Because a bad area back when I was coming up was Detroit. And you were afraid to make a move on somebody unarmed. You know what I mean? That was just the way it was.
Although you have to
I
think,
could
too,
walk
that...
anywhere. I could walk anywhere looking like a fucking freak. In a fucking...
Although you have to think, though, that the assailants in this case were teenagers, and teenagers are the stupidest
They're stupid as fuck,
creatures
right?
on Earth.
True, yeah.
Stupider than all the animals in the animal kingdom, and I'm including mosquitoes and slugs in that estimation.
Yeah.
So, and teenage boys are the worst.
Yeah.
The worst.
It doesn't compute to me. I guess race is a factor, too. These are white dudes and, mostly white city. I was walking around as a white guy in a mostly black fucking city that was mostly abandoned. And I'm telling you, black dudes in Detroit were cool to me.
Well, that's what I mean.
Because they were just, I wasn't...
You didn't have anything to do with their shit.
I wasn't in the drug trade, and
Right.
I wasn't... They were cool to me. You know what I mean? I was safe. So I never had...
That's what I mean.
I always liked... But Jenny knows. A lot of my friends today, my guy friends, are black guys. They're ex-military black guys. And I just always kind of had this thing. where I could fucking speak the same language as a brother. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if it's Detroit in me or if it's the army or what. I don't know what it is, but you know, I had a good time in Detroit. It's just economically depressing. There's no money there.
Well, yeah.
That's the problem.
But like I'm saying, it's like that's why in a lot of ways, like I'm not saying it's good that there's like all these like drug related murders and stuff like that, but in a way you can understand it because at least there's a reason behind it. They're killing people because, you know, hey, you fucked me over on a drug dealer or whatever.
Right, yeah.
It's just like, to me, it's less understandable
No,
when
I
you're
know.
just killing a random person just for no.
That's crazy fucking white boys.
That's what I mean.
don't
That's just
understand.
a crazy.
It's crazy.
That's what I mean. That's what I don't understand. Serial
Yeah.
killers, I don't understand. And that's why, like, when I was writing my Faceless Villain book, I'm like, look, there's tons of like unsolved murders where, but it was clearly drug related,
Right.
and it was kind of like, and I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying it's not mysterious. Because there's at least a, you know, and I hate to use this word, but there's at least a practical reason.
Right.
Or there is at least a rational reason behind why
Right.
you killed that person.
Exactly.
It's like, you know, they stole my drugs, they stole my money, they did something to piss me off.
Yeah, I mean,
like I get that. I just don't get this kind of like this lovely couple that are
And you
just like
just-
walking
yeah.
home. They just went to buy some fucking cigarettes and they're going back to their house. And then these like gang of teenagers decide, oh, you guys look a little bit funny, and we're just gonna kick you in the head until
No.
you die. I don't understand that
No.
at all. I
No, I
just
don't
don't.
understand either.
Why would you do that? Why? Who does that? These fucking
Crazy ass fucking white boys.
stupid ass motherfuckers.
I don't
God
know.
damn
I don't know any brothers that would do that.
Like, that's what I
No.
mean. It's like, why would you?
They just try to chat the white girl up. You know, talking about
That's
fucking,
why there's no
like,
reason.
why you
there's,
wanna fucking
there's
wait-
like
yeah.
no reason.
I don't get
And
it.
so, like I said, teenage boys the worst, and
Yeah.
these particular teenage boys obviously the worst.
Yeah.
But like I said, I read this interview with Robert Malby that came out in 2017. And like I said, he was very, you know, obviously he's still upset about it. He's moved on. He has another girlfriend and or a fiance who I believe is American. And he's done exhibitions and stuff. And, you know, and he's like, you know, was talking about the media being a little bit victim blamey, which, you know, I kind of get that. And he's like, you know, I kind of wish that we could focus more on why the killers did what they did rather than why we got attacked because we looked different. You know what I mean? So, which I thought was a very good point. He also, though, seemed to be, he didn't like necessarily come out and say that he forgave the killers, but he was saying, well, they're teenagers and they, you know, it's a really economically depressed area. They grew up in really fucked up circumstances too. Maybe we should look into why they turned out like this rather than focusing on why we look different and so we got our asses beat and got killed. He's like, why don't we look more into the circumstances that make these types of people that would do something like this rather than, you know, focusing on why, you know, us looking different. You know, as a kind of a, so that's what he meant by saying it was like victim blaming. So initially, because there had been obviously so many witnesses at the park that fucking saw this shit happen, the police arrested initially 5 people who had participated in the attack, but also kind of kept the investigation open because they suspected that there were between 15 and 20 other people who had either witnessed the attack and didn't do anything or had maybe participated in the attack. They weren't really sure. So, in the end, though, they only had evidence to prosecute 5 of the 5 initial people that they had arrested. This was a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old. And also, they were, like, remanded in custody. Then there was 2 15-year-olds and a 17-year-old. They got released on bail. Now, initially, they were charged with causing grievous bodily harm with intent. But then they decided, like, after Sophie Lancaster died, because, like I said, she didn't die immediately. She was in a coma for a while, and then she was brain dead, and her life support was turned off. The Crown Prosecution Service decided to charge all 5 of the boys with murder. So they did try to, like, question other people to try to, like, bring some other people in and see if other people were involved, but they didn't have enough evidence to do that. So they just, you know, assumed, well, these are the 5 the main people that participated in the attack. And probably the other people were just kind of, like I said, because it was like a skate park, it was kind of like a popular hangout spot for, like, teenagers that were, like, going there drinking. They weren't really supposed to, and shit like that. So they figured, well, maybe there was just people there that didn't have anything to do with it. Apparently, and notably, people that had lived around this particular park had reported to the police prior that this skate park was kind of a place for quote-unquote drunken violent yobs.
That's some British shit.
That is, yeah. Yobs or yobos.
Yeah.
That just means, like, hooligans. It's hooligans. It's boy spelled backwards, in case you didn't know. But, yeah, that's why. So, that they had been doing stuff, like, they were in there drinking and, like, wrecking shit and whatever. And they had been reported, like, lots of times, but I guess the police didn't really do anything about it. So, the 5 suspects get charged with murder. Now, 3 got released on bail, 2 15-year-olds and a 17-year-old. Now, initially, all 5 of them pleaded not guilty, at the original thing. But then they had a provisional trial, they all pleaded not guilty, and then they had a regular trial, and then they all pleaded guilty to grievous bodily harm with intent. Although one of them, Ryan Herbert, he pleaded guilty to murder. And then another one, Brendan Harris, pleaded not guilty to murder. Now, the murder charges against the other 3 got dropped because I guess they didn't have as much evidence for those, and maybe they were just kind of like on the sidelines or whatever.
Yeah, more observers.
Yeah. So there was that kind of, and these were all minors too, you have to understand. Although, like I said, 15, 16, 17, that's old enough to know better. You can get the death
penalty in the U.S. for that.
Yeah, in some states you probably would. And honestly, like, what happened was, because they were all minors, they didn't release their names initially, but then after Brendan Harris was found guilty of murder, and I think Ryan Herbert was also found guilty of murder, they decided to release their names because they'd been convicted. So the names were made public. So here's the thing. It's like, this one guy, Detective Superintendent McGradwell of the Lancashire Police, said this is one of the most violent murders he had come across in his career. He said, "I do not think Herbert and Harris have recognized how violent the attack was. They've just done it without thinking, but they seem to have enjoyed it and carried on remorselessly kicking at 2 very defenseless people who were unable to protect themselves because of the level of violence inflicted upon them." And then he said, "I'm very critical of the parents involved." I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but I wouldn't throw it on the parents, just that the boys need to die.
Well, no, he said, "I really don't think they've taken completely seriously how repulsive this incident was."
With the parents or the kids?
Yeah, well, he said that when one of them, Ryan Harris, I think, was interviewed about the crimes, he said that his mom was there and he was like laughing and joking around with her. Yeah. So this cop was just kind of like, this whole family is fucked up.
They need to die, yeah.
It's like, I don't know about that.
Some people want to be like, they want to pussyfoot around. Well, you can't use a death. No, yeah, you can. Just because they're people doesn't mean you can't kill them. They were killing people.
There comes a point, like, people like this.
People. Yeah.
That's
not right. Of course it's not right. Kill them anyway.
You could argue that they're teenagers. Like I said, teenagers are the worst. They do stupid shit. I did stupid shit. I didn't kill anybody, obviously.
But
in a way, it's hard for me to relate because even when I was 15 or 16 years old,
I knew better.
I would have never done something like this. This is messed up shit.
This is human trash. It just has to be taken out.
And I feel like, yes, they probably had horrible upbringings, clearly.
Right.
But there comes a point where
then there's going to be people like, well, you can't do that because that makes you as bad as the offender. I just fucking laughed. No. Fucking execute them. You're overthinking it. But it's wrong. So what? I mean, what they did was wrong.
Well, okay. I'm going to say, it's like, in general, I'm kind of like,
fuck them.
I think the death penalty should be judiciously applied because there's been a lot of cases where, someone was on death row and then it found out they didn't do it, like later on because of DNA and shit like that. So they need to be really, really careful with that shit. But in a case like this,
they know they did it. Yeah, there's no.
I'm not real sympathetic toward teenage boys anyway. I'm just saying, and I have 2 brothers, but they're lovely people. So, and they would never have done something like this, even when they were that age.
You got to stand back and look at that shit from a fucking higher dimension. It's also a numbers game. You know what I'm talking about? It's also a numbers game.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
like I'm saying, it's a moral gray area, like I said. In this case, I don't know. Had I been on the jury and these 5 boys... Had I seen these 5 boys knowing what they had done, and if they had been, like, fucking smug about it or thought it was funny or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, fry that motherfucker.
Fried them.
Because it's bad enough. Like, it's bad enough if you fucking kill somebody in a horrific way like this. No reason for it. They were just walking through, like I said, they were just like walking to get fucking cigarettes and walking back to their fucking apartment.
There's a big difference between a cold-blooded murder and a hot-blooded fucking type of manslaughter.
Well, yeah, those are two, and that's why the law rightly sees a difference between those two things, because they are very different.
Not all homicides are equal.
They definitely are not. They definitely are
fucking not. And if you kill someone methodically in commission of a robbery, it's equal. You need to die. You know what I mean? It's the same as a cold-blooded murder.
And this, I mean, something like this that just seemed like, and I'm not saying there's really any reason for murdering people. I'm just saying that something like this where it was just two completely innocent people who were just like walking home, because I guess this crime pisses me off so much because I can imagine, because I've been in this situation.
Well, think about this.
It's like, look at me. It's like, I don't look that weird right now, but it's like, sometimes I'm downtown and I'm like looking all gothed out and shit. I got my corset on. I got my tits all popped out.
You got her makeup
and
on,
shit like that.
And
it's like, and I'm walking down the street in Orlando and I think to myself, what would happen if like 6 dudes decided that they were just gonna like kick my ass for no reason? It's like, what am I gonna?
How you look?
Because they don't like how I look, or they don't like that I don't want to talk to them, or something like that. So what would happen in that situation?
It's mostly that she won't talk to them. That's usually what it's. Hey, baby, how you doing? And she doesn't answer.
And then
I was there.
And then they get mad.
And I look at them like, what are you talking about?
Then they get mad.
Hey, then they get mad. I'm like,
well, because in many cases, I don't know. Like, I always feel like
Jenny,
the best.
Tell them what I do when they come up and start rubbing on you and dancing on you on the dance floor. What happens?
Start trying to butt fuck them.
I do.
Yeah.
I got this game that I play, and all the bouncers know it.
It's very effective.
At all the fucking club. I'll be up there dancing with her and shit like that, and dudes will try to get up on her like that. So I just fucking get behind that dude, and I'll just be trying to get it up in there.
And that stops.
And they turn around, and they were like, what? And I'll plant a big ass fucking kiss on a bitch's face.
Yep.
Like that.
It's very.
And they don't know what to fucking
hilarious.
do. They don't know what to fucking do.
Well, yeah, because they're not expecting it.
If they're going to be sexually aggressive with her, then I'm going to be sexually aggressive with them.
Yeah, it's like
I'm going to be like, all right, okay.
How you like it. Which, in a way, that's good because...
And every bouncer will be up there watching, they're laughing.
And they just think it's funny.
They're just doing this, they're just fucking laughing.
Well, they all know us, that's why. Well, see, the thing is, that's the problem. It's that being a woman kind of sucks, I have to say. Especially in situations like that. Because you get, like, dudes that fuck with you. It's like, you can get mad at them and tell them to fuck off. They won't do it. They don't take you seriously. They're just like, why are you being so mean? Why? And they won't go away, even though you want them to.
Back there on the back of them swashbuckling like fucking Johnny Depp putting the scimitar.
And then if I did that, then they'd be like, all right, yay, I'm into this. But if another dude does it, then they're like, okay, bye.
They don't know what to fucking do.
They don't know what to do. And they just take right off.
I'm going to get some of that boy pussy. That's just how it is, man.
Just take right off.
It fucking,
it's very effective.
You're going to get aggressive with my woman, I'm going to get aggressive with you. I'm going to get up in
So ladies, get your dudes to do that because it works really well.
You got to be a man. You got to be very...
Also, I have to say, too, that our friend Shauna, who has been on the show before, she will just straight up punch you right in the throat.
Yeah, Shauna will just punch you. Me, if you come at my woman, then I'm going to get right up on you. I'm going to start trying to get my nuts up in you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And dudes run.
It's very funny watching.
It's fucking hilarious.
It's very funny watching.
I'm like, what's the problem? You know, you want to get open with sexuality? I'm gonna get open with sexuality too.
Well, it's very
and you're gonna get fucked. You know what I mean? It's gonna be prison style. It's going to be like San Quentin.
Well, because you're doing to them what
What
they're
they
doing
do to
me,
you.
and they don't like it. This is what kills me. It's like, do you understand?
You got to
That's
be
why we
very
don't like
comfortable
it.
with your sexuality. You got to be very comfortable with your masculinity and understand that there's certain that there's a woman and then there's a whoa man. That's when you look at some man and look at his booty and you go, that looks like a woman's ass. You know what I'm talking about? If you want to fucking get all up on my girl like that, then yeah, it's gonna be a threesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
you're
I'm
gonna
going
get-
first. I'm gonna get up in your booty. You know what I mean? And then they run. I don't understand
and then
it.
they don't wanna do it.
I don't understand.
That's what I
Jen.
mean. They're-
I don't understand it.
That's what I mean.
I don't understand.
Well, that's why it's effective. It's because
I don't
they
understand
don't seem to understand that it's
It's
like
equal opportunity.
yeah, it's like women don't like that done to them. It's like, so if another guy does it to them, they get all like freaked out and offended. I'm
treating
like,
that motherfucker
that's
like a
exactly how I feel.
I'll put my hand
Do
up
you
like
see
that, and I'll be
that?
like fucking like doing like,
Right.
and then they start running away like, where you going?
All
Where
the
you
bouncers,
going?
like all our friends are
And the
sitting around
bouncers
there,
are
just,
laughing their
cracking up.
asses.
Because
And it's always a soy boy. It's
Well,
always a soy
or a
boy.
jock.
Yeah, the jocks understand it. As soon as I start doing it to them, they're like, oh, okay, you got me. I didn't know you were with her.
well, what ends up happening too is that, I mean, you know, before Corona came and like
Yeah.
we used to hang out at the club and everything. I mean, at Independent Bar, we kind of have a corner. You
Yeah.
know, where like we're us and like all
All
our
our
friends,
friends
who
hang
are
out.
mostly like the old
Goths
crotchety
and
goth
shit, yeah.
people. So we all kind of hang out in one area and we're kind of like dancing and stuff. And every now and then you get like some idiots that don't like know.
They're not sure what dickhead
And they're
is.
not really sure what's going on.
Yeah.
So they'll come over there and start being like obnoxious and shit
Grabbing
like
on
that.
girls and shit.
grabbing on girls and whatever.
Yeah.
And we will have to correct them,
Yeah.
as they say in The Shining.
It's gonna go pirate on the high
And
seas.
like I
real
said,
quick.
because we've been going there for a long time and because we know everybody.
I'm gonna swashbuckle the fuck out of that shit. And then we got, and depending on what year we're talking about, then it might have fucking punk rockers up in there like Will, like my friend Will
Or Dr. Michael.
or Dr. Michael.
Oh.
Yeah.
You don't want to get on the wrong
Oh,
side of Dr.
shit,
Michael.
man.
I don't even
Dr. Michael is a true bisexual. You know what I mean? I'm just fucking with you.
Should we even
okay?
talk about Dr.
No,
Michael?
Dr. Michael is a fucking.
He's a doctor. He's a veterinarian.
He's a veterinarian. He's a goth dude who's a veterinarian.
He's awesome.
Got a bunch of money, and this motherfucker's you look at him, and he just looks like a pot belly, really. Pot belly, little skinny dude with a pot belly, like skinny fat. That's what he looks like. But he looks like riffraff from
A little bit.
From fucking what's the name of that fucking movie again? Fucking
Rocky Horror
Horror.
Picture Show.
It looks like a riffraff. And if you get sideways with that motherfucker, you're gonna get sexually assaulted homosexual style.
He will do it for real.
He'll do it for fucking real. He's not joking. All right. I gotta keep my nipples away from that bitch. Remember how that is? He keeps trying to
He's a
grab
nipple
fucking
guy.
He's
He's
a
a
nipple
nipple
motherfucker.
guy.
I'll be like this. He's like, "You're getting bigger. You're getting big. You're getting big strong." I'm like, "What are you fucking doing, man?"
He's a lot of fun, though.
He's fucking hilarious. He's fucking hilarious.
And
But-
he's a big tequila drinker also.
Oh, this motherfucker
That's all
drinks
he
all
ever
kinds of-
drinks is tequila.
Dancing crazy and shit. And if you're a fucking mundane and you start doing crazy shit around fucking goth fucking women on the dance floor, that's it. He's gonna be just on your fucking
Yeah,
ass.
he will
He's gonna
get
be on your
all
fucking booty. You
And
won't
he's
know.
like our age or older.
Yeah, he's an old guy with long fucking hair, and he's fucking kind of bald on the
hysterical.
front of it. He looks like a cross between fucking Riff Raff and Frankenstein. And
He's got his like vampire shirt on. And
yeah, no, it's not Vampire. It's Lily Munster.
shit. Oh, that's right. He has a
Lily-
vampire one too, though, right?
Got a vampire. He's got a little Lily Munster, and motherfucker's wearing fucking shorts and fishnets.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Dr.
And
Michael.
he drinks like fucking crazy, and he's strong as shit. You look at him, you wouldn't think there's anything to him. He could just fucking pick you up.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's fucking roid rage or what. I don't know what it is. He's got fucking access to all those pharmaceuticals. Some weird shit happening.
Yeah,
with
that
him.
could be. He's a.
He's got all kinds of access
He's
to all
got
kinds
all
of
the
weird
horse
veterinary
drugs.
horse drugs and shit.
I love that. I love you, Dr. Michael. I really do.
Michael, fucking you motherfuckers, stay on that end of the bar.
I miss seeing everybody. That's
Once the pandemic's...
I miss this pandemic shit.
I don't even know what a fucking foreigner would think of fucking Dr. Michael if they saw his ass. First of all, they wouldn't know that he was a doctor.
You wouldn't suspect that.
No.
You wouldn't suspect that.
Doctor, he's a veterinarian doctor.
Well, that's the funny thing. That's the thing that cracks me up about, like, especially the goth scene in Orlando, which, like, was the one I'm most familiar with. Is that a lot of the people in there is like they look all freaky and shit like that, but then like
turn out they're fucking lawyers and district attorneys,
doctors, lawyers, pharmacists.
Yeah, one of them is a fucking weird ass fucking gothic fucking fetish couple that we know that fucking have a shit ton of money, and she is a district attorney and he's an ex-convict.
Yeah,
that's some weird shit there.
So it just goes to show that you can't. Again, and this is relating back to this case, you can't judge a book by its cover.
No.
Like, I feel like it's better nowadays, but back in the old days, if you had, like, tattoos or dreads or, you looked like a goth or anything, everyone just assumed you were a bum.
No, these people got money.
But we know several people that are, like, fucking freakazoid looking and have, like, really, like, better jobs than I ever had.
She's a district attorney. He's an ex-convict. She's fucking locking motherfuckers up, and they have female slaves.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole fucking thing.
But, yeah.
Yeah, in a mansion.
And like I said, a lot of the people, if you just met them in the bar, you would never know that they was like a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, but they are.
They have all these fucking bondage slaves and shit living with them. Yep. It's the weirdest fucking thing.
Because they don't talk about it.
I cooked pizza up in that house. We had a big party. I'm fucking making pizza and shit with fucking
They
stuff.
had the best party.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been. They had a birthday party for me one year, but that was like a few years ago. Yeah, they used to have the best parties. But yeah, so...
We gotta wrap this case up, though.
Yeah, because we still have another one to talk about. You just keep on talking and talking.
Right,
I told him, like, when we took a break, I was kind of like...
It's one of those kind of deals I told you. You got 3 cases, this bitch gonna take 6 hours.
Well, yeah, why is that? Because you keep going off on
I'm trying to put on a show.
Okay.
I'm trying to put on a show. Trying to entertain. This is entertainment material.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, so all these motherfuckers got convicted, happily. Yeah. So some of them not so much because they were minors, but, the main ones kind of got life sentences or whatever.
Yeah,
the judge said, this was a terrible case which has shocked and outraged all who have heard about it. At least wild animals, when they hunt in packs, have a legitimate reason for doing so to obtain food. You have none.
Right.
And your behavior on that night degrades humanity itself. That's what the judge said.
Judge is correct.
He is correct.
Judge is correct.
So the only thing, I mean, like I said, I was reading the interview with Robert Malby. He sounds like a lovely, lovely human being. And it's kind of like a shame that he's forever associated with, now he's just like, oh, I'm the guy whose girlfriend got murdered and I got beaten almost to death. And he might never get over that, which kind of sucks. So it would be nice if he could just... Because he said that in the interview. He's like, I wish I could just be known as, like, Robert Malby, the artist. He's like, did illustration and stuff.
Heart goes out to the dude, man.
He's, like I said, he seems like a beautiful human being.
Yeah.
And honestly, he does not... Because I'm going to tell you right now, he's a better person than me, because if that had happened to me and I had survived, and those 5 young people, and I use that term loosely... got out of prison, I would go and kill every single one of them.
I would have set those bitches on fire, Mississippi Klan style. I would have fucking just like purification by fire.
That's what I'm saying.
Call in the Klan.
Well, don't
string them up. Blow, fucking burn.
Don't call in the Klan.
Okay. I can do it without the Klan.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do the Klan style.
Please do
I was
things
going to do the
without
Klan
the
style. Yeah.
Please do things without the Klan.
Okay.
But I'm just saying...
That was a cool touch, though.
Was it?
Yeah, I thought it was, man. Fucking right, man. I'm calling the Klan. Fucking burn those boys, man. Burn them up. Burn them up.
Well, let them do something productive.
They're doing something productive.
Instead of the shit they're usually doing. Yeah. Washing their sheets. But you know what I mean?
Klan's gone now. That was another era. It was just sounding cool. Imagine a Klan coming fucking burning them up.
I would rather, honestly, I don't even need to call nobody. But I'm just saying that, like, I admired this dude for like being bigger than them, and he was just kind of like, they were victims too. It's like they were just kids. It's like,
I can't understand it.
They did stupid shit. It's like he was not saying he like forgave him or anything, but he's like, yeah, I get it, but
I can't understand.
yeah, I think I would have probably just hunted them down,
Can't understand.
Dexter style,
Yeah.
and eaten them. But you know what I mean. That's just me. I'm just, like I said, I'm a terrible person. But so he's a lot better person than me. But so as I said, the death of Sophie Lancaster really did seem to kind of cause. There was a huge deal about it. I mean, not only in the goth community, shit, man, they had like a fucking the Whitby goth weekend. They had like a whole thing. I think they even like dedicated a bench to her there, like in Whitby, so like everybody could see it. Like all the goth metal industrial festivals and shit like that did tributes to her. I think like one of the Bloodstock, which is one of their big like festivals over there. They still have a stage to this day, as far as I know, where they're trying to like educate teenagers about like, hey, maybe don't pick on people who look different than you. It's like, that would be nice if you could not do that. But so it really does seem like her death was a catalyst for like a lot of like, better shit that came along. I don't know if it's any better nowadays, because like I said, this was more than 10 years ago.
I think it is better.
I think it's better too.
It is here.
Yeah, and I haven't been to the UK since 2009 probably, but it does seem like people are less like shitty toward people who look different, or
that era is gone.
I hope it is, because I mean, I lived through it. It sucked. I didn't, and I got it a lot better than a lot of people did. But
we'll watch movies and I'll fucking see our fashion cues of what we used to wear in mainstream movies now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not weird
It's
now.
not the same like it was.
And honestly,
we were setting trends back then. We were fucking breaking ground.
And for a while, like probably in, this was probably 2014, 2015, when I had my bright red hair.
Yeah.
And, even when I was like at work and stuff, and I was dressed fairly normally because I was at work, but I still had bright red hair. I would get comments, but all the comments were positive. It wasn't, it wasn't a thing where you were getting like abused from people like walking around like, what the fuck, freak?
It's not like it was.
It's not like it was. So I do feel like shit is going in like a better direction, even though it seems like it's not.
You can go to any trailer park and find blue-haired and fucking red-haired bitches nowadays.
It's weird. It's like
It's not the same thing.
And honestly, like when I got my first tattoo,
that was like a big deal back in the day.
Hardly any girls had tattoos.
Yeah,
and even the tattoo artist said that to me. Are you sure you want this on your arm?
Yeah.
It's everyone's going to think you're a whore.
It seems like yesterday. It seems like yesterday to us.
It does.
But to younger people, that was a long
It was a long time ago. Well, yeah, some of them weren't even born then.
They weren't even born then. So
it's just really funny
Isn't
to
that
think.
weird?
It's really funny to think about that some people we talk to, it's like they weren't even born when I got my first tattoo.
Yeah.
I told you the other day, like we were this was probably a few months ago or a year ago. Last time a Starry Night was in town. And I was talking to Michael, who's the singer, who's a really good friend of ours.
Yeah.
And he is a sweetheart. He's like a really sweet guy.
Yeah, he's the American version of fucking Robert Smith, actually.
He is, yeah.
He loves Robert Smith.
Yeah, The Cure's his favorite.
Yeah.
So I was talking to him because they had a gig here in Orlando because they're from Miami, and they came to iBar after, and I was talking to him by the bar, and he said something about him being born in 1990. And I said,
damn.
I graduated from high school in 1990. It's like I could be
I was in basic training.
your mom.
I was in basic training in 1990.
It never occurred to me.
That's insane.
That he was that young.
And what's funny is that like it's an American goth band. I think they're all Latino.
They're not. Well, are they?
I think they all are. Think about it.
Ilya might be, but I don't know.
I think they all are. I think he is too.
I don't know.
I think they are. It's just funny how
I never asked him.
Yeah, because remember they said it's so fun to hang out with the white people. Don't you remember that? And I was like,
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what they meant by that.
Yeah, I was like, because they're from Miami.
Well, I know.
And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Because race and ethnicity is something in the United States that fucking, at least in our scene, we don't really even notice that much.
Well, it's
not
something
really an issue.
I've never noticed it ever. It's just kind of like
what mattered is if you were goth or not.
yeah. It's like, did you look cool? Did you like
Yeah,
cool
right,
music? All right.
It's so
I don't
to hang
give a
out with
shit.
all-
What?
So cool to hang out with all the white people. And I was like, what? It's, yeah, all
Yeah,
the white
I
people.
didn't really get what he was
and I
getting
was like,
at with
it's
that.
we're
I'm like,
from Miami.
yeah.
And I was like, so? And it's like, it's all Latinos. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. But then I'm looking at them and I go, I think they're Latino. But we never think
I don't
about
think
it.
they are though.
I think they are.
I don't know where Ilya is from, but wait, is he Latino? I don't know.
I think they are,
I
yeah.
never asked him.
I think they are. It doesn't matter. We don't really.
If you guys are listening, tell me.
Yeah, I think they're all Latino.
It's just something that never occurred to me. I was just like, kind of like, you guys like cool music.
They just
whatever.
thought it was funny that they thought it was cool hanging out with white people, and I was like, it is?
It is
Yeah.
well. In a
think
way, that's
they're
something
Latino.
that I always liked about the goth scene. Is like if you kind of looked gothy and you were like into
Yeah.
cool music, it's like no one gave a shit about
No.
you otherwise.
No.
They didn't care what race you were. They didn't
No.
care what sexuality or gender you were. They were just kind of like, whatever, you're cool.
Well, actually, like one of the fucking biggest mover and shakers in terms of music is a black girl.
True.
Mouse. Mm-hmm. And goth as shit. I mean, she's just goth as fuck. Everybody loves her. She got a white husband, I think, though, doesn't she?
She does, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just,
Well,
never-
it's just something that is not a big deal. Like I said, goth is something that even though I feel like it's probably perceived maybe particularly
white
in
thing,
Europe as a white thing, and maybe in the U.S. too. But
not over time.
I always kind of experienced it as not really race specific, not really gender specific, because even in the 80s and 90s, I knew several people of many races. I knew transgender people. I knew, gay people, straight people, everything like that were into it, and no one really talked about it.
Didn't matter.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like everyone kind of knew, but it was just kind of like, yeah, whatever.
Goth was a race unto its own.
That's a good way of putting it. It was just
Yeah.
kind of like that. It's like, do you like the cool shit? Okay,
Yeah.
then we can hang out.
Right.
Which I think that's a good way of looking at stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like if everybody's like into the same shit, then
Yeah.
that's just how it goes. All right, so before the show is like 4 hours long, which it probably will be anyway, let's talk about our last case, which is the World's End murder / Angus Sinclair.
Yeah.
Hold
on 1 second.
What's
Before
that?
we get into that, I mentioned a mouse, and I just wanted to give her a plug.
Obscura Undead.
Obscura Undead
You
on
guys.
YouTube. You'll see what I'm talking about, and she does a lot of fucking goth music reviews. But check out Obscura Undead. It's a good show on YouTube.
Also, she is a beautiful person.
Yeah, she's awesome. You'll love that girl.
She's an awesome person.
Yeah.
She has been over here a couple of times. And
Yeah.
she's
Her
a
and her
really-
boyfriend.
She is a really cool person.
Yeah. Her husband, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, they got married a couple
Yeah.
years ago. But yeah, so this got requested a couple of times, and this was something that I wanted to do because I saw a documentary about it a long time ago. This is a case where this is some shit that happened like back in the 70s, and they didn't really have, the forensic, technology to like deal with it. And then they finally catch the motherfucker later on, like in the 2000s, and then they find out he's like responsible for all this other shit too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those kind of deals. So the World's End murder took place in 1977. They called it the World's End because the last place that the two victims were seen alive was a pub called the World's End in Edinburgh, Scotland. Now, these two girls, whose names were Christine Eady and Helen Scott, they were both 17 years old. And they had been out for, night out at the pub like you usually do. Now, evidently, according to all witnesses, they had been there for a little while. Helen apparently was kind of tired. She wanted to go home sort of early. But then they had been seen with two, at the time, unidentified men. And apparently they had been talking to these two men for 20-25 minutes. And apparently one of them offered them a ride home. and they were never seen alive again. Their bodies were actually found the next day. One of them found completely naked. One of them found naked from the waist down. They had been raped and strangled. So for many years, they did not know who had done this shit. But then later on, they actually caught the dude that did it. It was actually two dudes, which they knew at the time, but they didn't, know who it was. But they later found out that it was this fucking motherfucker named Angus Sinclair, who thankfully died early last year in prison. But it took him a really long time to get caught, which is kind of sad. So this dude, he's one of those dudes that started real early, and it seems like one of those cases where if only somebody would have just locked this motherfucker up or hit him in the head with a brick or something like that, like a lot of people's lives would be saved. Because even from the time that he was a teenager, he was psychologically assessed, and psychologists were saying, look, this dude is a sexual predator, and we don't think he's going to get any better. And this was when he was like 16, 17 years old.
Damn.
And we do not advise that he ever be let out again, because they knew they could see it. Right. And this was like back in the 70s. Or back in the 60s even.
Back when they weren't as sensitive to that shit.
Right. And it's like, they're like, look, we don't think this dude needs to be running around like in public, because we don't think that he's ever going to get any better. And it's just like, he's just going to be a danger his whole entire life to women and children, as it turned out. But for whatever reason, that just seemed to be not heeded, and many women died as a result.
Damn. So what happened?
So his first offense, like I said, and when the World's End murders occurred in 1977, you have to imagine that this murder, and there was a series of murders in Glasgow as well, which were initially not connected to the World's End murder, but later were found out were perpetrated by the same person or persons. But at the time, they didn't know who did it. But later on, when they caught him through DNA and shit like that, and then they went back and like looked into his history or whatever, they found out that this dude started offending very early. Like, so his first shit was like in 1959 when he was 13 years old. Burglary, breaking and entering, that kind of shit. That was from 1959. 1961, when he was 15 years old, he started lewd and libidinous practices on an 8-year-old girl.
8?
Yes,
Damn.
when he was 15. He got 3 years probation for that, because he was still a kid. The same year, 1961, he was actually convicted of killing a 7-year-old girl, raping and killing a 7-year-old girl, Catherine Rehill. He got sentenced to 10 years in prison, although he only served 6 years. Keep in mind, he was still a minor, okay?
Yeah, that's a fucking bad warning sign there.
Which, like I said, and it was around this time period that psychologists assessed him and were like, yeah, don't let this dude out.
Yeah, he's
because
a fucking nut.
Even though he was a kid, they could see it. Well, because one of the things that they noted was that he seemed to have zero empathy, and he seemed obsessed with sex. It to a degree which was like remarkable in the sense that
must have been something organically wrong with this motherfucker. He must have had something wrong with his brain.
And honestly, if you've seen like later, because like I said, he did a lot of shit before they caught him, or at least caught him for all the murders and shit. And he was one of those dudes that just seemed to have no feeling whatever. Like when they were questioning him about shit, even when he was a kid, they're like, he would just sit there and just not answer, and he would just like stare at you like he didn't give a shit. You could just like question him. You could like say all this. You could come at him this way, come at him that way, and shit like that. And he would just sit there and stare like he didn't like give a single shit
He
at
had
all.
some kind of an organic brain damage.
There definitely seemed to be something wrong with him. And honestly, I was watching a documentary about him earlier, and he had a brother, and the brother was talking about when he got convicted of the first murder when he was 16 years old. The girl was 7. And the brother was trying to get him to confess to police because the brother knew he had done it, you know. But he was so fucking cold and like calculating. Like the first murder, he kills the 7-year-old girl, right? He rapes and murders a 7-year-old girl. Like somebody comes to the door like in the middle of it and he just goes to the door and be like, oh, whatever. It's like, I can't come to whatever right now. And he just like, what? And he's like totally calm.
He wasn't even worried about it.
He even called the cops and said, oh, a little girl fell down the stairs. And he was just like totally chill.
Yeah.
And like the brother was just kind of like, you know, you have to confess and all this other kind of shit.
How'd the brother know?
And he finally did. Well, I think he suspected because he like knew that his brother was a fuck up.
Right.
And he's like, after that happened, he's like, with his brother, he's like, yeah, I'm done with that.
Right, yeah.
And later on, when he was an old man, because I saw an interview with him as old man, he's like, I wish that I had killed him when he was a kid.
Right.
The
I
brother
can understand
said.
it.
Yeah, he said that. I wish I had killed him.
To prevent evil. You're right.
Which, yeah, I could kind of get that too.
Like earlier on in the show, you said there's no reason for murder. Like I would never accept murder. Yeah, there is. There's a lot of good reasons for murders, and this motherfucker's a good example. I would have killed that kid fucking to prevent fucking the death of fucking innocent people. You just gotta know. That's what I mean.
It's like, it's so hard because it's like, you know, it's a kid and it's like, you know, they might grow out of it. It's like, I don't know. But sometimes, and we've talked about like a lot of serial killers and shit like that on the show where even when they were a kid, and in this case particularly, it does seem like even as a kid, he seemed like a complete sociopath.
Remember that time we were in the car and you asked me about that girl who fucking cut that little kid's dick off and fucking killed him and shit? Remember that? You asked me what I would do. What did I say?
I don't remember what you said.
Okay. I said I'd have killed that little girl as long as nobody knew about it.
Yeah. Well,
there are some people that just gotta go.
There's a difference there's a difference between kids who do shit without really thinking about it and who are just because they're dumbass kids, because kids dumb.
That little girl was thinking about that shit.
That's what I mean. And there's a difference, and it definitely seems like Angus Sinclair was the type of dude where his brother, who I think was only a couple of years older than him, he saw it. He was like, that, he's not right. Yeah.
Just because they're people doesn't mean you can't do what it is that has to be done.
Well,
these motherfuckers are evil.
Some
people aren't normal.
Yeah.
Some people gotta go. Some people are just fucking monsters.
And I think it's rare, but as I said, we've talked about a lot of serial killers on this show, and a lot of them are made like through their like circumstances or whatever. But I do feel like there are
some of them are just
few that from a very early age you can tell that there's something the matter with that kid.
The fucking human mind is a very complicated thing. Everything has to go right for the shit to go right. If something goes wrong in it, you might have some very bad outcomes, you know? And sometimes society isn't equipped to deal with a situation like that. You know? You have sometimes a fucking person has to deal with shit on their own. You know?
Yeah.
But it just depends on the situation, you know? Fucking society isn't well equipped to deal with everything. There are some things that just have to be dealt with by fucking people.
Well, and things like this are thankfully quite rare.
It's rare. Yeah, it's rare, yeah.
I don't think it turns up because, as I said, it has to be a perfect storm of some horrible genetic fuck up and then maybe you get like dealt a bad hand in your family thing and it's like this.
Then all these government officials and lawyers jump in and this and that and psychologists and then they try to talk it all out and it becomes a big clusterfuck, all of them trying to make money off of it when really the kid just needs to be thrown in a down water with a down brick around his leg. You know, just that.
Or it's like accidentally knocked into an alligator pit or
run
something.
that bitch over, you know, some shit like that.
Yeah,
you know
back over him in the truck.
Run that bitch over, you know. So, but, you know, I'm just...
Well, There's a reason why there's a whole subgenre of horror that's like killer kids.
Yeah.
Because it's a fear that people have.
Yeah.
Because what would you do? I've thought about this too, because I've watched a couple movies. This is kind of like a horrifying concept to me. What would you do if you had a kid and that kid you knew was fucking evil? Mm. What would you do? Could you kill it?
What is a person? What is consciousness? Why is a person conscious? And is a kid like this, are they a conscious person? Is there something wrong with them that prevents consciousness from happening?
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean?
It's all going to be a matter of degree, because you know what I mean? Everything's on a continuum. So it's like, I know that the laws have to be like, you have to have like a stopping place somewhere. Yeah. And you have to have like a limit somewhere.
And then you have to understand law and the limitations of law. Each country has its own set of laws. It's based upon the mores of the people of that country. Can you trust that? I'm going to say no. You can't trust that all the time. There's always a margin of error. You know what I mean? The
that's
laws in Saudi Arabia are not the same as the laws in the United States. It's a different kind of people. It's different opinions. Law is opinion. Right and wrong is opinion. A lot of it based upon religions. And sometimes religions that only used to be believed in, by the society. I'm skeptical of the law. I just am. Sorry.
Well, the thing about law is that it's only as good as the people making the laws, and everyone is imperfect. Yeah. And as I said, reality is messy. Yeah. There aren't any hard limits between, and this is a good case of that, because you can argue. It's very easy to argue that you have somebody that was a serial killer later on, and like, you look back at their life, like after they've killed however many people they've killed, you look back at their childhood and they're like, okay, well, you could tell that there was something the matter with them. Like, it started early. They were torturing animals or whatever it was they were doing. So it's easy to say in hindsight, oh, that person was going to be a serial killer. But the problem arises because you don't know, because there's other people, there's other kids that do fucked up shit like that and they turn out okay. So it's kind of like there's no clear way to draw a line in that situation. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes it difficult, is because there aren't any clear lines of shit. Although I should say that in Angus Sinclair's case, he certainly seemed like a piece of shit from a very early age. Yeah. And probably should have been smothered. Yeah. I'm just saying. Well, because it's not only that. There was not, and like I said, it's not only like torturing animals, which is bad enough. I mean, like, I think you should be just killed just for that. Yeah. Because for fuck's sake, stop it. But I mean, when you're 13 years old and you're already like doing robberies, and then you're 15, 16, you're already like raping and assaulting like fucking kids like younger than you. Stand back, bitch. Yeah, I'm not sure that you're going to get any better. No. I'm just not sure about that. I mean, you gotta go. I can remember being a young kid, like a preteen and a teenager. Yeah. And as stupid as I was, I wouldn't have done it. I'm not a boy, so it's different.
Man, look, I'm telling you, boys don't do that.
That's what I mean. It's like most people don't do that, thankfully.
Yeah. No, when I was a boy that age, I was fucking like nice and like considerate, and you know what I mean?
What happened?
What's that?
I'm just
is he talking? I was still trying to get in the pussy, but you know what I'm saying? I was going to talk my way into it. I was going to just be pretty and get into it. You know what I'm not going to be like, I'm going to kill you.
He was pretending to be a nice person.
I was nice. I was just wanted some. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'd go out, I got photos. I got pictures to prove it. You know what I'm talking about? I'm just going to fucking be cute and get it. You know what I mean? But, I'm just saying, doing what this dude's doing.
Yeah, that's just not normal,
He's
man.
17 doing that.
16.
16 doing that. When I was 16, if I saw him doing that, I'd have killed him back when I was 16.
That's what I mean. It's like, how
I'd
many...
have fucking crushed that dude's head.
As fucking stupid and retarded as, like, 15-year-old boys are.
No, they're
it's
not
like,
that dumb.
It's not normal to be, like, raping and murdering 7-year-old girls.
No, I'm telling you.
That's messed up. I mean, I
Look,
don't think I should have to tell you.
She's trying to say, "Oh, these boys are so bad." Boys are actually good. They would have stopped that. Most of them, like, what are you doing? Of course. Of course they. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
Of course they would have. Of course they would have.
Yeah.
You know, they're
I'm
being like,
yeah,
that's
I'm
wrong.
saying that's not normal behavior.
No, that's not normal.
Well, and obviously, even back in the 60s, even back in the 60s, a fucking psychologist who studied him when he was like just a teenager was like, yeah, I don't think you should ever let this kid back out on the streets because he's never going to get any better. And sadly, no one really took heed of that advice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, 1961, he gets 10 years for killing Catherine Rehill, who was a neighbor of his. She was 7 years old, raped and murdered her. He got a 10-year sentence. He was a minor. However, he only served 6 years. So he gets out. In 1970, he actually marries a nurse named Sarah Hamilton and also ended up having a son. He had done like some kind of like, I guess, job training and shit like that in prison. So when he got out, he was able to get a job as like a painter and like a decorator and shit like that.
Like
you
need an education for that.
Well, you know, like he had like a trade or whatever.
Yeah.
However, 7 years later, in 1977, it is believed that he murdered 6 women within 7 months. Although they did not know that he did that until many, many, many years later.
He's killing one a month.
Yeah.
Basically.
So the women he killed would be Frances Barker, who was 37, Hilda Macaulay, who was 36, Agnes Cooney, who was 23, and Anna Kenny, who was 20. These women were all from Glasgow. And he was also responsible for the infamous World's End murders in Edinburgh, which took place in 1977. That was Christine Eady and Helen Scott. Now, later on, he also was thought to have murdered another woman in 1978, 17-year-old Mary Gallagher, also in Glasgow. All right, so what was I talking about? Okay, so we're talking about, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm going to show you that. Fucking remember we were talking about Mouse?
Yes.
Mouse is on live. She's streaming right now live.
Yeah, it's Friday night.
I told her that we're... And that's Mouse. She's spinning. She's spinning. Look at Mouse. That's Obscura Undead. She's cool. That girl's so fucking cool.
She's cool as shit.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, go listen to her show. Yeah, she's live right now. We're recording this on Friday night, so she's live right now.
Yeah, it's Friday night, pandemic's on, so she's gonna go ahead and spin. She's spinning.
Because no one can go out to the clubs.
No one can go out.
Which sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah. Also, I should say, we had to pause because you had to go to the bathroom. And also
Pookie. Look at Pookie, she's looking at me.
So,
What's up,
Pookie was in the backyard.
Yeah, near the fucking lake.
Near the lake.
Hanging out with the deer.
Not supposed to go. And there was a deer.
Yeah, she's hanging out with the deer. Oh.
She was hanging out with the deer. Oh, shit.
Not my drink over.
Oh.
I was trying to grab you, Pook.
She's like, oh, shit.
She's like, I don't care.
She was alarmed.
Yeah. Yeah, we messed it up, Pook. It wasn't much. I spilled my drink. There wasn't much left in it.
It was empty.
She's looking at the fucking spill on the floor going, oh, shit.
What did you do, Dad?
Yeah, well. Oh, well.
I've always thought that was going to happen because that table is not super stable.
Yeah, well, I pulled her up. She was holding on to the carpet, and the carpet fucking went up.
She's like that. No, don't pick me up.
Yeah.
I want her to be on the floor.
Oh, well.
But yeah, she was out in the yard. She was hanging out with deer, you guys.
Hanging out with the deer, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the World's End murders, because that was kind of like the thing that brought this motherfucker's like name into the spotlight. So this happened in 1977. It was two 17-year-old girls, Christine Eady and Helen Scott. And they'd been out at a pub, and as I said earlier, they were just kind of hanging out with a couple of other of their friends. And apparently they had been seen talking to two men earlier in the evening who were not identified until much later. Evidently what happened was, it wasn't super late, but I guess they had gone out in the parking lot. One of them was a little bit inebriated because one police officer did report that she had kind of stumbled and he had been passing by and he'd helped her get back on her feet or whatever. But then like after that, apparently these two guys were like, hey, we'll give you a ride home or we'll take you where you need to go, I think was the quote that they said. And we all know how that turned out. So the two girls both disappeared that night after 10 or 11 p.m. In Edinburgh. The next day, Christine Eady was found out in a field. She was lying on her back completely naked. Her wrists were bound with one leg of her tights. The other leg of the tights had been used to strangle her. Her underwear had been stuffed into her mouth, and her bra was around her head, like holding the underwear in place. She had been beaten severely, bitten several times, and raped. Helen Scott, her friend, was found a couple miles away, also in a different field. She was found face down. She still had her coat and top on, but she was naked from the waist down. Her coat belt was binding her hands, and Christine's belt was around her neck. She had been strangled with it. There was also a boot print on the side of her head. So apparently she had been stomped in the head. She had also been raped and had probably had to watch her friend be raped and murdered before she herself was killed. Now, you have to imagine that in 1977, this was Edinburgh, and this was a fairly safe city at the time. From my understanding, Glasgow has always been more known for having like a higher crime rate, I guess. But in the 70s, like, Edinburgh was pretty safe. So this was like a pretty big fucking deal when this happened in the 70s, which is probably why this got more attention than the other murders that had happened in Glasgow that would later be related to this same murderer. So one thing, even though obviously they didn't have DNA, they didn't have any of that shit in the 1970s, but the Scottish police at the time in Edinburgh did have the presence of mind to think, hey, maybe we should save all of this stuff because maybe someday someone will be able to, figure this crime out because, there'll be better forensic evidence. So they did at least have the presence of mind to do that. So they did keep everything in very good condition and store everything for future investigators. So now, the thing about it, even though they didn't connect these crimes at the time, a little while after the World's End murders occurred, and as I said, reason they're called World's End is because that's what the pub was called, and as far as I can determine, that pub still exists. And it's still called the World's End. And sadly, it's famous for this. But a little while after that happened, a girl named Mary Gallagher, who was 17 rather, she was abducted in Glasgow and raped and murdered. Now, she had also been strangled in a very similar manner. One thing, one kind of signature of Angus Sinclair and his accomplice was that they would use the victim's own clothing to strangle them with, usually underwear or stockings or tights or something like that.
Now, how old was he when he was doing this? Do you remember?
He was probably this was late 70s.
So we're talking about in his 20s.
He probably was in his 20s or 30s because he didn't get caught until 2000 in the 2000s, and then he died in prison just recently. He died in 2019, I believe, and he was 73. So he got away with it for a very long time, only because a lot of crimes had happened in Glasgow, and the World's End murder happened in Edinburgh, which It's only about 50 miles apart, but in the 70s, they wouldn't have connected those two crimes. It didn't really happen until later on, until they actually figured, hey, maybe we should like do a kind of like larger analysis of this. And they kind of like did a breakdown of all the unsolved murders in Scotland, which was about 1,000, I think, over a whatever time period. And they're like, there were only this many that had this particular signature, which was women that were taken from clubs. They were raped. They were strangled with items of their own clothing. So in those particular cases, the MO was like so singular that they knew that they were probably committed by the same person. Now, I should note that very early on in the investigation, Scottish authorities were fairly sure that the World's End murder was committed by at least 2 people. Not only because there were 2 victims involved that were found dead several miles apart, and obviously it would have been easier for 2 individuals to have corralled these 2 victims into doing what they were doing, but also because the 2 women had been found with different knots in their ligatures, which one of the knots seemed like a more professional kind of like, I'm a sailor kind of like, or I know a lot about knots kind of thing. And the other one was kind of like, I'm just a basic bitch, you know what I mean? In regards to knots. So from very early on, they were pretty aware that this was probably 2 perpetrators. Later on, they would prove to be correct about that. However, by the time they had enough evidence to figure that out, one of the perpetrators was dead. So, that's how that goes. So, as I said, there had been a lot of murders in Glasgow that had been this same MO, but they didn't immediately link them with the Edinburgh murders because, like I said, this was the 1970s. They didn't know anything about DNA. They didn't know anything about that. Now, the weird thing about it is one of the murders that had taken place in Glasgow, one of the victims, Anna Kenny, the last person to see her alive, who was a woman named Wilma Sutherland, was the same woman who was married to a dude named Gordon Hamilton, who was the second perpetrator, who was Angus Sinclair's second dude. They were apparently the 2 of them. Angus Sinclair, this was his brother-in-law. And they were going out raping and murdering women because that's what you do.
Yeah.
With your brother-in-law.
Of course, yeah. And we got to make it a family thing. Let's go out and rape a bitch. Yeah.
Like,
rape and kill a bitch. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Angus Sinclair did some shit on his own, but he did those 2. They're pretty sure they have DNA evidence to prove that both of the dudes were there. That they did this shit together.
Some crazy motherfuckers, man, I tell you. Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
What year, more or less, was this again? This is 80s, 70s.
70s, late 70s. This was 77, 78. Yeah. So, Gordon Hamilton actually ended up becoming a drunk. And he died in a homeless shelter in Glasgow in 1996. So he never actually got charged with any of this shit. Luckily for him, I guess. Because, like I said, Angus Sinclair had been in and out of jail since he was like a fucking teenager. But it didn't get realized that he was a fucking serial killer until much later on. Which is, it's one of those things. Well, like I said, this was the kind of thing where even when he was a teenager, psychologists were saying, don't let some motherfucker out because bad things will happen. And they were correct. And it seemed like nobody heeded that. I know it's like easy to say in hindsight because we know what he did. But it seems like some people dropped the ball on this shit.
Damn.
So yeah. As I said, like about a year after the very famous World's End murder in Edinburgh, 17-year-old Mary Gallagher, who was abducted in Glasgow, raped and murdered. She also had the same kind of thing where she'd been strangled with items of her own clothing. Her throat was slashed. She wasn't strangled. Now, somebody saw him, though, in this particular murder, and an identikit, as they used to call it back then, composite sketch was drawn of him. Now, it seems like because the composite sketch looked a lot like him, I have to say. It was a good one. I've seen the identikit sketch, and I've seen like the photo of his real face. So it does seem like the description of him was pretty accurate. So I guess it got around in the media, and he got scared about it. So he decided that instead of going after 17, 18-year-old women, he was going to go after some little kids instead.
Damn.
Because it does seem like after that, because these two girls, they were 17, they were murdered in 1977, and then he murdered another one in 1978. And then between 1978 and 82, it seemed like he went more into rape of children.
Trying to ramp it up
Glasgow.
A notch. Trying to be more outrageous.
Either that, or because he was well, I might get caught doing that shit, so I better target some little children. So maybe
you thought he'd get away with that easier?
I don't know. I thought
Weird.
Maybe he'd get away with it, or I don't know. It's Weird. Some creepy fucking shit. So nobody knows. The creepy thing is nobody knows exactly how many children he assaulted at this time. Now, I saw a documentary about him. There's a couple ones, the BBC did one, and there was one that was Scottish specific, with all the accents and everything. I'm sorry, I had to turn the fucking closed captioning on. I understood most of what they were saying, but some of the stuff I was like, what are you talking about? But I lived over there for a while, so I know the accents and stuff, but even the Scottish accent, I'm just kind of
what the fuck they say?
Wait, what?
Yeah,
I had to back it up.
Her ex-husband was fucking Scottish, and
Welsh.
Okay,
that's a totally different.
Totally different. That's all the fucking same to me.
Different country.
I met the motherfucker at a club one time, and I was talking to him, and I was like, "What the fuck is this dude saying?"
And the weird
this
thing
is why
about
they were still married. I was like, "What?"
Well, the weird thing about it is that his accent to me, because I met him in the United States. He came here to meet me, and I never had trouble understanding what he was saying. Now, when I went to Wales, I didn't have trouble understanding what they were saying, but their accents in Wales were much thicker than his, I thought.
Yeah.
So, I mean, his accent, because he was really into American action movies and all this other kind of stuff. So his accent was not super, super thick, I didn't think. Other members of my family would always say to me, it's what is he saying? He was talking some alien language. I'm it's English.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean?
Yeah. From an American point of view, it sounds medieval.
I did not find him hard to understand at all. However, his family, when I went over there and some of his family members, a couple of them I did find a few things hard to understand, but not all that much. But even the Welsh will tell you, and the Welsh are kind of they kind of get shit on a lot by the English. They're called sheep shaggers. They're called all this other kind of shit. Although the Scottish, the Scottish get kind of that kind of shit too. Although I will say, I've been all over Wales and stuff it is a beautiful, beautiful country.
You never saw any sheeps getting shagged, did you?
I did not.
Okay.
I saw lots of sheep. I didn't see anybody shagging them though. Have to tell you. Not they would do that just in the open. Yeah. But I'm just saying, I never had any trouble understanding him at all. I didn't think he had a very thick accent. But when I went over there, some of the accents of his relatives were a little thick, but I didn't really I didn't really have that much trouble understanding them. Scottish accents, even Welsh people will tell you, we have no fucking idea what the Scots are saying. And a lot of English people will say that as well. I can understand about 75% of what they're saying, but some of the shit, I was just I had to turn the closed captioning on. I have to tell you, and the closed captioning was that. You know how YouTube does the fucking automatic, It was terrible. I was like, well, some of the stuff that like the thing, I was like, that's not what they said, but whatever. So I don't know what the fuck I went off on that. But yeah, so Sinclair gets out. He like fucking does the shit with the kids between 78 and 82. There's like all these fucking rapes. I don't know about like killing them, but he does like all this sexual assault on kids in Glasgow around this time period. And they are not entirely sure how many kids that he did it to. This one documentary that I saw, which was, like I said, kind of more Scottish specific, they interviewed a couple of his victims that had survived, and they were like in shadow and stuff because they didn't want to like be public, but they were talking about, I mean, they were just little at the time, and they were talking about, he was just like a dude that was like in the neighborhood, and he would do shit like, oh, hey, can you like take this message to your mom, or like he was one of those kind of motherfuckers where he would like, right. He had like a ruse.
Right.
And he's like, can you tell your mom, like, give your mom this money, or I'm gonna like, you run an errand for me, or some shit like that.
Right.
And the little kids were like, they're like 7-8-year-old girls. And they'd be like, okay, whatever. And they would like go up and do it. And then he would come back and like do shit to them. And they would like, you know.
Yeah. This bitch needs to be killed.
Well, he's dead now,
yeah.
So it's fine.
I'd smack the fuck out of that bitch.
But yeah. Right. So he gets caught for this shit
yeah.
in 1982. Now, in 1982, he pleaded guilty to 11 charges of rape and indecent assault against minors.
Damn.
And at this point, this is 1982, remember, he admits to authorities that he's like, well, it could have been hundreds of people. I don't know if that's true or not. It might be, because this seems like that kind of motherfucker. But he got sentenced to life in 1982. Now, he's still in prison 20 years later. He's getting ready to go before the parole board. And then it comes to light that he might have something to do with that long ago 1978 murder of Mary Gallagher. So like I said, this is not... He doesn't get accused of, even though he's most famously, the World's End murder killer. That wasn't the one that actually brought him to the attention. Like, he was in prison for other shit, for, like, raping little children. So he was already in prison.
He's a pedo.
Yeah.
Right.
Although, initially, he had started out raping and murdering 17, 18, 19-year-olds. And then it seems like he went
that shit was
children.
too difficult. He had to freaking
I guess,
bring it
that's
in.
what I mean. It's like he went, like, for easier prey, it seemed like. Because it seemed like he knew that authorities were on his tail. So it's like, maybe I'll go here, like, because I feel like it's less heat on me or some shit like that. It really does seem like that.
Well, what it is the victim cannot fucking actually be able to communicate as well to the police about what happened.
Yeah.
That's probably what he's talking about.
Well, yeah,
it's
and
easier.
that's what's messed up.
It's like, well, if I rape these little girls, they won't be able to tell the cops. They won't give the cops a good fucking report, so I'll get away with it.
Yeah, because it's a kid,
It's
and
a
who
kid,
the fuck
right,
is going to listen to that?
They won't remember.
I feel like that's kind of like the justification of pedophiles everywhere.
Yeah. This bitch needs to be raped.
Hopefully he did.
I'd jump on that bitch and swashbuckler and that. Put the cameras on me.
Man,
We
you
make a
want
big.
your fucking cooties on your dick.
We'll have like fucking lights shining and disco balls and shit. We'll make an event out of it. I'll make this bitch pay-per-view. Imagine the amount of money we would make.
Probably you would make a lot of money.
You'd have to load me up with a bunch of Viagra.
Like doing
Viagra and Rad 140 and shit like that. Fucking testosterone.
I wonder how many people would pay to watch, like a dude that they knew, like undoubtedly was like a pedophile or a rapist,
raping these little girls. So he's gonna get raped. This shit.
And you just like
it would be like
had a pay-per-view.
It'd be like a huge pay-per-view
of somebody just like
you put me in fucking trunks and shorts and shit. That'd be hilarious.
So he could see what it was like.
That'd be hilarious. It'd be hilarious.
Honestly,
I'm just making shit up, but I'm saying it'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
You know it would be.
So, like I said, so even though the World's End murder is the one that he's like most famous for, that was actually not the one that first brought him to the attention as like being a murderer. It was actually the case of Mary Gallagher, which was a year later in 1978. They found out that because they had preserved a lot of the DNA evidence, like clothing and whatever from the 1970s, because in the future they'll have like better DNA technology or better forensic technology, so we'll save all this shit. So they did. So they found out later on, like 20 years after the fucking crime was committed, that fucking Angus Sinclair was coming up for parole, and they're like, look, your DNA was found at the scene of the Mary Gallagher murder. They found his DNA on the victim. So they actually decided they were going to bring him to trial for that particular, even though he was in prison for other charges. Now, at this stage, too, they also found the DNA, and this was also found in the World's End murder case of his fucking brother-in-law, Gordon Hamilton. But by the time that this happened, Gordon Hamilton was sadly already dead. He had died in 1996 in a homeless shelter. So he couldn't be prosecuted, obviously. So the Scottish police launched something called Operation Trinity because they believe that Angus Sinclair is probably responsible for a lot more rapes and murders than what is initially believed. So they review every murder that took place in Scotland since 1968, which, as I said earlier, was more than 1,000 murders, and found that 6 bore a very specific signature, which they believed, made the murders all connected. So they tested all of those in particular, and all of these murders had happened within a period of 7 months. Why are you looking at me like that?
What do you mean why am I looking at you?
Oh, you're looking at me like that.
No, I'm listening to the show.
Oh, okay. You look like you're looking at me like, what are you talking about?
No, I'm into it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So at this point, they feel like, well, we have a signature here. We know that it's probably Angus Sinclair. They want to do the shit with Gordon Hamilton, but he's already dead, so they can't, like, fucking do anything about that. So they contact the FBI, because at this point, this is fairly early on in the whole serial killer thing, kind of. And they're like, the FBI and Quantico are kind of like at the cutting edge of this. So like, we need your help in this situation, or we need another set of eyes on this. So they get an FBI agent named Mark Safarik, I guess is how you pronounce his name, in Quantico, and he looks into the case as well. And he looked into these particular 6 murders that they believed to be from the same perpetrator. So he says, we look into these cases to see whether they're linked. And he says, yes, they were probably committed by the same offender. So the Scottish police then plan to charge Sinclair with all 6 of the murders. However, there were a couple of problems going into the trial. So the police in the jurisdiction where one of the murders had taken place had lost some of the evidence. Also, another one of the murders that they had attributed to Angus Sinclair later on, the murder of Francis Barker, had actually been attributed to another person. And he had been in prison for many years at this point.
Oh, shit. So they got that one wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the sad thing about this is that he actually died in prison.
Yeah.
And DNA evidence later showed that he didn't do it.
He didn't do it. Damn.
Nope.
Was he guilty of any other crimes?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
But he wasn't guilty of the crime he was put in the fucking jail for.
Damn.
He wasn't guilty of that murder because Angus Sinclair did it.
Man.
Can you imagine?
A lot of times a guy will fucking get locked up for something that he didn't do, but he did some other shit.
Yeah,
Because,
it's like you feel less bad in that because
Right, yeah.
it's like, well, he wasn't convicted of the shit that they said that he did, but at least
Right.
he did other shit. I don't
did
know
other
about
shit.
this, dude.
Okay.
I don't know about this.
A lot of times the prosecutor will say, I kind of suspect this guy didn't do this one, but I know he did that one. That's a lot of times what happens.
Well, there's the thing too where, and I can understand, like, this is understandable. Because if you know that the dude did this shit, but you can't prove it, but you know that he did this shit and you can prove it, then do that.
Right.
And then, like, he'll be in jail at least in case he did that shit, which is worse, and then at least he's off the streets.
Right.
So I can see why you would do that.
A lot of times they do that. The prosecutors do that a lot of times.
Which,
yeah.
I mean, the way our legal system is set up, you can see why they do that. Because it's like, look, it's like, this is a lesser charge, but at least he's off the street.
Right.
You know, yeah, he didn't
can't
get
prove
convicted.
this over here, and I know
he didn't
he did
get
that.
convicted for this horrible, like, torture murder over here, but at least we could convict him for
this one over here,
aggravated battery or whatever the fuck this shit ever. And at least we'll keep him off the street for however many years this sentence is. I mean, it's better than nothing. Because the thing is, it's like, if you just try him for that fucking, for the worst crime, that's like a higher, you know, standard.
Right.
That you have to keep to. And if he gets off on that, they'll just, like, let his ass loose, and then he might go kill somebody else. So, you know what I mean? So I can see why they do that, like, for a lesser charge. So the thing about this, and I have to tell you, because the dude that got convicted for Francis Barker's murder was named Thomas Ross
What?
Young.
Oh, shit.
It was you.
No, but his middle name was Ross.
Yeah, well, Thomas Ross Young. That's how he's always.
So his last name was Young.
So I don't know if it was Ross Young, like that was hyphenated, or if that was just like his last name.
No,
that's how they.
That's not my name.
That's not my name.
That's not my name. I got my middle name is not Ross.
But yeah, it's not.
No.
I know what your middle name is.
Yeah, I ain't sent. Don't tell anybody what my middle.
I'm not
name
going
is.
to tell you what. I'm not going to tell anybody what it is. I know you're embarrassed.
No,
but I know what it is. Do you know?
I don't want anybody doxing me.
Do you know what my middle name is? You don't.
I forgot. I used to know. Jenny something or other Ashford.
Well, my maiden name was Mitchell.
Mitchell, that's right.
But
that's not your middle name, though.
My middle name is.
Yeah.
Do you know?
No.
Hope.
Yeah, that's right. You told me. You
My
told me a
middle
long
name is
time
Hope.
ago. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Isn't that funny? I live with her. I don't know her middle name.
You don't know a lot of shit about me.
Oh, listen to that.
He didn't know what my birthday is. He didn't know what my middle name is.
Oh, thanks. Look at her.
I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. I got a head injury. I can't remember that kind of shit.
I know.
You probably told me, and I'm like, what? I don't remember my own shit.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. I have an excuse.
Yeah, so they decide in 2007. So they decide they have some evidence in some of the murder cases there. So we're going to go all out on the fucking Angus Sinclair thing. Because like I said, Gordon Hamilton was dead by this time. So it's like, we're going to try and like convict him of all this shit. This was in 2007. Now the problem arose because, okay, they found DNA on the bodies of the World's End murders victims, Christine Eady and Helen Scott. However, for whatever reason, it wasn't introduced at the trial that the DNA was actually found. It wasn't only found like on one of the victims' coats, but it was also found like in the knots of the ligatures, which would suggest that this was a forceful, you were forcefully like restraining these girls or whatever. It wasn't like a consensual encounter. So because they didn't introduce that evidence in the trial, Angus Sinclair was successfully able to argue that the sex was consensual and that the murder was perpetrated by Gordon Hamilton, the brother-in-law, who was already dead at this point. So because Angus made that argument, or because his defense attorneys made that argument, they were able to introduce enough reasonable doubt that he got off with the shit. Now, he was already in prison for other shit, so it wasn't like he was like walking free or anything like that. However, so many people were pissed off by this outcome. And because in Scotland at the time, there was a thing, and we have this too in the U.S., where you had the double jeopardy thing. You can't be, like, prosecuted twice for the same crime. However, I think in the U.S., I'm not really sure when the U.S. kind of, like, made it less lenient or more whatever it was. But it's like, it's kind of like you can be tried, because you can be retried in the U.S. if they find new evidence that says, oh, yeah, he totally did that shit. Okay, well, in Scotland, you couldn't do that. Like, if you'd been tried once for that charge, you couldn't be tried for that charge again.
American law is based on English common law.
It is, yeah. So it's very similar.
Right, it's very similar.
So Scotland had this law where if you had been tried, and since Angus Sinclair had already been tried for this particular murder, you know, double jeopardy law said that he couldn't be retried for that again. However, the fact that the shit came out later about his DNA being found inside the knots of the ligatures, which would suggest that he had been there, he had been participated, it was like not consensual, blah, blah, blah. So the whole entire law was changed, and honestly, this was the first case in Scottish law where a person was tried again for the same exact charge because new evidence had come. And this was the case that, like, changed the law in Scotland. So they kind of brought that out about it. So he actually did finally get convicted of the shit when he was, like, fucking 69 years old in 2014. He finally got convicted of all these fucking murders.
At 69.
At 69 years old. And sadly, he died only 4 years later in 2019.
It's almost kind of like getting away with it.
Well, he did get away with it for a really long time. Because, like I said, if he hadn't done this murder, he did the World's End murder. That was Edinburgh. But they didn't find it, like, because that crime was so high profile, and Angus Sinclair was a suspect at the time. And like I said, you can't forget, too, this was two dudes that did this. Angus Sinclair did some shit by himself, obviously. He did a bunch of shit by himself. Like, he raped little girls, murdered little girls. He murdered several other women. But he also had an accomplice, his fucking brother-in-law, Gordon Hamilton, who only got away with it because he fucking croaked in 1996, and they didn't get to him in time.
Damn.
So I'm just saying. So Angus Sinclair turned out being one of the worst serial killers in Scotland, and they didn't fucking catch him until later on. And then he was only spent like 4 years in prison, and then he fucking dropped dead.
Fucking asshole.
And from everything that I have read about everyone that interviewed him, is that he was like the worst person ever. They said that he just would sit there, and I saw this one interview with him. Oh, it was like really creepy. So they're like interviewing him about some shit. He will just sit there and look at you. He won't like talk. He won't do any. He just sits there and looks.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a single shit.
Yeah.
And most of the investigators said that this is a total sociopath. He has no feelings. He has no empathy. He has no remorse. You just look at his face. It's like he doesn't talk. He doesn't do anything. He just like looks at you and he doesn't care.
Total dick.
Yeah, it's like nothing you say to him makes any difference, and it's like he doesn't care. And like I said, if you had listened to the psychologist back in the 60s, who said that please keep this bitch in custody because he's not right and he's messed up, maybe we wouldn't be here. But, you know, like I said, hindsight's 20/20. You can't predict like what people are going to do. Some people like work it out and work out okay, but I in this situation, the psychologists were completely correct because this dude is, I mean, and everyone I've seen that like talked to him and stuff said he was just a monster. He's a monster.
Dang.
Like he really does not care about anything or anyone.
That dude needed his ass beaten.
I kind of wish it's like when I saw the documentary and like I said, and they were talking to his brother, who was a little bit older than him, and his brother had said, essentially that I wish I'd killed him when he was a kid, and you could see that he was kind of like upset about it. I'm like, yeah, I think everyone
Right.
kind of wish you had done that. I mean, like, I don't blame him for not doing it because he was just a kid at the time.
Yeah, you'd
But
get in trouble if you did that anyway.
that's what I mean. And
They'd
it's
come
like,
at you
it,
and go,
it,
"Oh,
it
well,
wouldn't
we
have
gotta-
worked out,
yeah,
right?
no."
But in hindsight, he's like, man, I wish I had killed him. And that's fucked up. That's
Yeah.
fucked up to think that
Yeah.
about your brother.
So
But-
is that it?
Yeah.
That's
Is
it. Okay.
All right. You done?
Yeah.
All right.
That dude's a fucked up dude, man.
Well, he's dead now.
He's dead.
He died recently.
Yeah.
Well, not that recently, about in 2019. But yeah, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed this rambling, drunken discussion,
Yeah.
as usual,
Right.
about various UK crimes that you guys have suggested.
It was still a good show.
Do you think?
Yeah, it was still a good show.
I hope so. We'll see when
it was
when
a good
I
show.
edit it
Yeah, no,
together.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed
We'll
it.
see when I edit
Yeah.
it together. And he just goes back to his fucking shit.
No, I'm gonna show everybody says that. Look,
Oh, there's Mouse still.
there's Mouse. She's fucking spinning.
Is
Look,
that
she's got a
live?
smile.
Is that live?
It's live. She's streaming.
Oh, okay.
Look at her.
Look at her go.
Yep.
What's up, Mouse?
You could. Yep. You guys go ahead and subscribe to Obscura Undead.
Yeah, she's rad.
Yeah,
seriously.
she's a cool chick.
But yeah,
And
so
we can shut this bitch down.
all right. So okay, so this is episode 192. Hope you
Like,
guys
share,
enjoyed it.
subscribe.
Please like, share, subscribe. It really does help out a lot. Like I said, we're gonna launch the YouTube membership thing. We'll see how
Yeah.
it goes. I don't know how
It'll
long
be up
it's
there.
gonna take to like fucking come into fruition, but we'll see. If you'd like to financially support the show at the moment, you can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/13 o'clock podcast, or you can go to our PayPal account, which is at the blog 13 o'clock podcast.wordpress.com, and there's a button in the sidebar that goes to a PayPal account. And like I said, hey Jason, I'm gonna get you a t-shirt. I
Yeah.
promise we're gonna do the shit.
We'll
It's
do it.
like we haven't done t-shirts for anybody yet.
Yeah, we
because
just gotta open. Society has to open back up.
I
And
gotta
we're-
order some shit and like
Yeah.
nothing is coming. It's like
They
everything's taking like a month
Yeah.
to get here.
The money's not the problem. It's the supply. Once we have it, I'll fucking
Yeah,
do
every
it.
like the shirts, the ink,
Yeah.
it's awkward to get right
Right.
now because everything's like taking a long
Everything's
time.
closed. Yeah.
But I swear to God, we will get you some shit because we have another like PayPal contributor named Melanie who contributes like every month or so like through PayPal, and she's gotten a t-shirt in
Yeah.
the past. So we don't forget about you guys. It's just that right now it's kind of like an awkward time.
Yeah.
But you know, we'll get to you, we promise. So anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this discussion on episode 192, and we will see you next time. Bye.